Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 253. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge on the comic forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. That's Zatanna, whether human or a Muppet. Unlike us, she's a really sexy puppet. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we're going to talk Zatanna number 11, Batman and Robin number 22. We're also discussing Birds of Prey 11. And what book am I missing in that one,
Superman
Jim?
number 710.
Oh, yes, the Batman and Superman issue from Grounded, which is very cool. Bruce Wayne, I should say, and Clark Kent issue of Superman. And we have some voicemails, we have emails, we have an interview that you conducted at C2E2 with Paul Storrie that's going to be on there. It's a very packed episode. So we hope you guys enjoy this. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. I want to remind everyone about the Hero Initiative, that's heroinitiative.org, and the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, that's cbldf.org. Both of those are linked into the show notes, and I do that every week. We also have a charity section on our website. And if you are a part of a charity for comic books, or you know of charities for comic books, and I don't have links to them, please let me know, because I would love to put those on ragingbullets.com. Send that to ragingbullets@gmail.com. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, you can pick up Zatanna number 14. Regularly $2.99, 40% off, only $1.79. This is written by Paul Dini, art by Jamal Liegel and John Sabal, with a cover by Adam Hughes. Zatanna's struggle against Brother Knight forces the Maid of Magic to reach into the darkest places for a mystic edge in battle. But now that she's fighting as dirty as night, will Zatanna's own soul be lost in the process? And this is a wonderful book, and actually on this episode we talk about why Zatanna's been so great and what's really cool about how it's stepping up with issue number 11. Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to shout out the Superman cover-to-cover hardcover. This is 270 of the greatest Superman comic covers of all time. The cool part is it's not just the covers. I have the Batman volume, and one of the things that I really dig is there's commentary for each of the covers from different creators and different people associated with Superman explaining the significance of each cover. So it's a cool piece. It's not just the artwork, it's also the significance of why they're there. There's 240 pages in this. It's $39.99 regularly, 38% off, only $24.79. And if you haven't picked up these volumes, it's a definite collector's piece. That's over at InStockTrades.com. And remember, orders of $50 or more gives you free shipping. Our friends at DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com are behind the Summit City Comic-Con. That's June 18th, 2011 from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Grand Wayne Center, 120 West Jefferson Boulevard in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's SummitCityComicCon.com. Go over there and check it out and see if you can be a part of that, because it sounds like a very cool event this year. Also on the convention front, I want to remind everyone that coming up very soon, this is April 30th and May 1st at the Greater Reading Expo Center, the Comic Geek Speak Super Show, the CGS Supershow 2011. That's comicgeekspeak.com/Super Show. And once again, all of these have links in our show notes, so be sure to check these out. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we go over some you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Carter Hall, scientific genius from a far-off world, flies into action as Hawkman.
Jim, issue 11 came out of Zatanna, and it's a book I really wanted to talk about because it's one of those series that I've been really enjoying. I know you use the term palate cleanser on the show, but it is really one of those because it hasn't tied into anything major event-wise. It's been one of those books that I've really enjoyed, kind of like what I'm digging with Jonah Hex, what I'm digging with, Booster Gold for a while kind of fit this mode too, because it was a great solo series where you could just kind of enjoy following the character. Power Girl was like this way for the first 12 issues before it tied into Generation Lost. It was its own contained thing. And that's not a knock on where Power Girl is now. It's just, I like to have series every so often like this where you can just kind of follow the character. the big problem a lot of times when you have series like this is that people, unless they're tied into something, don't jump on board as much. I'm hoping this series is doing well, because I dig it a lot. I like Zatanna. I like exploring the magic universe. It's something I liked with Shadow Pact. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about issue 11, it's like this book kicked up to 11, because I was enjoying the artwork before a great deal. But this reminds me of what I liked about when Jamal Igle came on to Supergirl. There was an energy that all of a sudden came on to the book. And there's something in the way that he tells a story that I really dig. And I'm talking about the visual storytelling. I love Paul Dini's writing. I'll read anything Paul Dini is, going to be publishing, whatever company he's going to be with, just because I really enjoy his storytelling. But when you get him with an artist like this, whoa! Was this a special story? Because he has that way of... It's funny, it's not just the facial expressions that Jamal uses. I also love body language of characters, things like that are going on in there. He pays a lot of attention to those details, and I particularly enjoy that in this book, because there's a lot of visual comedy in this without losing the fact that Zatanna's a puppet. I mean, yeah. And it's a pretty scary thing that she's trapped in. Yet, it remains a fun story without losing this sense of claustrophobia that she's experiencing. And it was something that I really enjoyed about the issue.
Yeah, there's definitely a nice, really cool looking path that this has gone through. I've enjoyed what I was reading before, and you made the funny, the comment about it turned it up to 11, and I got to agree with you on that, because Jamal really knows how to draw a nice, sexy woman, especially a nice, sexy puppet, even as well. I'll give him that credit, and you have to have a level of, sex appeal. You have to have a level of that. Just that you look at her, she's planning something. And
Jim, when you're saying sex appeal, are you talking about women now or puppets?
I'm talking about how he creates them. How he's drawing Zatanna. Because Zatanna's a character that, sex appeal isn't just, looking good. It's about her personality and her attitude and just the presence she gives. She's a very strong female who, she's pleasing on the eyes, but there's also just that little bit more to her that, is it very, it's something goes, it's that it factor, that unknown explained factor and type of quality that it's hard to explain, but when you see it, you know it. And it's something that I really enjoy in his art style, and I've enjoyed in this series, and I'm looking forward to more stuff coming down the line when she doesn't have a string attached to her.
That's good. I liked when you were saying that the puppet had sex appeal, though. That really was hysterical.
Hold on. The one scene when she just starts getting the groove, and she just starts thinking, and she starts getting, and she starts like, wait, no, I got to do it backwards. And she frees her mind, and the puppet just kind of gets the half eye slit going, and you look at her, and there's more cognizant to what you can actually tell Zatanna is now in control of the puppet. Zatanna is now, her mind is there. It's like a 6-panel page. In the bottom panel, that last one, she's got just the half slit eyes. That is a cool looking picture. I don't care if that's a puppet.
I'm not arguing with the artwork. It was just hysterical that when he came out there, I'm like, wow, Jim was just saying that puppets have sex appeal. All right.
They can.
Oh, I know. I know about your love for the Muppet Show. It's a good thing. But honestly, all kidding aside, I totally agree with you on the art. It was one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about this issue. It's funny when you get this marriage of a great writer and great artwork. And I liked the artwork on this series before. I'm not knocking it. This has been a book that has never been on the chopping block for me. It's always filled that little niche where I got to get kind of the magic universe. But again, I think the comparisons to what happened on Supergirl when he came on board with Sterling Gates are really good here, because it is something where the second that I open it up, we've got this guy playing with various different kinds of puppets. I love the guy the third one down almost looks like the Sylvester McCoy Doctor Who in this presentation there, like in a Muppet version of him. But I love just the artwork as we're going along. And yet there is a creep factor to this guy. Like, he's doing this puppet show, yet he never loses the fact that Hempel guy, or whatever his name is, I'm forgetting his name at the moment, but he never loses that evil factor which is really important because this is a creepy dude. And I like that we're starting to get some villains in this series that I'm starting to identify, and saying, like, I would like to see this guy come back again at some point. I would like to see him used again because it was a really cool use, and it's a different sort of villain than we're used to seeing in the rest of the DC universe. And I think it's important with a book like this that you have a rogues gallery. They don't have to reoccur all the time. You want to establish that Zatanna fights all kinds of wacky characters, from demons to characters like this, and there's a history with her father that's kind of unfolding with us as we're going along. There's a lot to explore with Zatanna. Yes, she's been around a long time, but she hasn't had a solo series throughout all of her years. She's been on a lot of teams. She's had mini-series and solo runs, sure, but never to like the longevity of some of our other characters that have been around as long as she is. So there's a lot of ground to cover in her history and say, here's some things you didn't know. Then when you bring her dad's history in there and the fact that, there's other family members you can bring in, there's a lot of avenues to explore of problems and conflict and things that can be brought on board, unfinished business that's there, and I'm really enjoying that aspect of the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'm liking, as you said, just building up her rogues gallery, building up her support team. This Mickey is pretty cool. Another character who, if you're going to be around Zatanna, you got to understand her. You got to understand the little quirks behind her and know what is a warning sign that something really bad is going on and something, you don't need to worry about it. Yeah, the boss disappears usually a lot of times for a couple days at a time, but you got to recognize where the warning signs are. Recognize where this isn't just a normal occurrence. There's something up. She needs some backup. And I thought that was a great way just to, great usage of her, bringing her in to kind of lure Hampel into, kind of a nice calm state of relaxation, scantily dressed, a little bit, I'm here to make up, tee-hee-hee-hee, kind of flirtation, then hits him with the knockout the knockout stuff and takes him down, and then starts, okay, what's going on here, boss? What do you need me to do? I love just how that played out, because it went right from that, again, a nice storytelling moment where you see this, that friendly, ha-ha-ha, kind of flirting with him, to the point where Zatanna recognizes it's her friend, and you can see that, like, and it's, again, a nice meshing of the artwork to show the extreme and just the energy that needs to be done here, the urgency that we're, faced with.
The important thing before we get to that, though, and this it's the creep factor of developing a villain that I'm really enjoying about this, too. He was going to donate her to the museum to trap her there forever as a puppet, knowing because he'd been through that experience that she was conscious, or conscious enough that there was an awareness of what was happening to her, because she's almost in a fog, which is something that I really dug, because he had no idea that she was going to be able to use her magic to even get to the point where she could focus herself like she did. So she was lucky in the sense that she was able to do that, and there was that happy accident of her friend coming in. If that hadn't happened, those circumstances, he would have trapped her there forever.
Oh, yeah. That would have been a real creep factor. And that would have been... and to be honest, if I'm going to play, devil's advocate here, that's a very cool villain moment for him to trap her the way he was trapped. It's kind of I'm not just going to do the evil villain, burn the puppet and kill you. I'm going to torture you. I'm going to give you this fate that is just beyond pain for you. It's going to be to the pain. And I kind of enjoyed that about him, looking at it from the evil side of it. That was a nice way for him to do it, and a nice way for him to handle it.
Now, it was interesting how with Mikey being under a spell, because you were talking about her before where she came in and she provided this opportunity to save Zatanna. And Zatanna didn't even recognize her, which shows you how differently she was dressed. That Zatanna didn't recognize her friend at first, but once she recognized who it was, she tapped into the fact that she's got some kind of spell on her. Now, we talked about this before recording. I don't remember what spell she was under or how that came about. Was that something that happened in the series and I'm just forgetting it? Do you remember this?
I do not remember it at all. I think that's something that is going to play out later, or it's just a tease set up for maybe a future story arc, or just one of those Zatanna mysteries. But it's funny because after we had that conversation off, I was like, okay, I'm going to pull out the Zatanna and reread it just to see if I'm missing something, but I do not remember it. And when I read it, the first time going through the issue, the first thing that popped in my head was like, okay, we're going to find out the backstory on this one. And I was looking forward to finding out where and why and whatnot was the spell.
You know, talking about attention to detail, one thing I really love, like, when she comes in all trashy, you know, dressed in that whole outfit, not only do you see all the cosmetics in her bag and stuff like that, but I love that, you know, the short shorts, because we've all seen this before, where the pockets hanging out of the bottom a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. You know, talk about taking time to say, how can I make this look authentic? Because the whole point of her disguise when she comes in there is she's got to look confident. She got to look like she belongs in the role enough that he's not going to get suspicious. Because this isn't a dummy. And she doesn't know who she's exactly dealing with in the sense that what are this guy's full capabilities. We find out later in the issue that she did some investigating of her own to uncover that, you know, Zatanna had this like stalker-like person after her, but she doesn't know who she's dealing with. This shows some smarts for this girl. I'm really liking the development of a supporting cast in this series, and I want to see more of this. This is something, you know, we're 11 issues in now. I want to get to know more of her world. We've said this with other books before. What was one of the things we liked? You know, I'll compliment another run that Jamal was involved in, Supergirl. I liked seeing a developing supporting cast in the Supergirl run. When we saw her working at the Daily Planet, the Cat Grant stuff that was going on, Lana Lang stuff that was going on, this. Zatanna now. We're starting to develop not only villains, but a supporting cast in here as well. This is a character who I'm interested in. I want to know why she's got this magical ward on her. What happened to her that she's like this? I'm interested. I'm going to go back and check through the issues again to make sure, like, did I miss something along the way? Because I may have. It is funny how this series is now starting to jump up my stack. Art team change mixed with the writer. There's an energy here between them. And I do think, you know, you can have really good art and maybe there's not as strong a connection between the artist and the writer that we're seeing now. And for some reason, I just think that the storytelling now, I think Jamal gets what's going on with this book, and this is great.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Now, when I was talking about that bit with Mikey, where Zatanna kind of tapped into the magic ward that was on her, whatever it was, the magic barrier, she doesn't know at this point how much Mikey's going to be able to do. These are artifacts. Keep in mind, they turned her into a puppet. And that in and of itself was a happy accident, because that wasn't something that the villain or Zatanna expected to happen at that point. So she's randomly putting these objects together and sticking Zatanna puppet on top of them without knowing if this could do something worse. Now, because of the connection to it, Zatanna was able to free herself. And this led to a great comedy moment, because I loved this line. It worked, sort of. You're still a puppet. Yes, the spell needs some fine-tuning, but at least I can move and speak again. Yeah, but you're still a puppet. It was a very cool moment, how she's kind of analyzing it, but also it shows the familiarity that Mikey at least has with Zatanna's world of magic. She isn't that shocked. She isn't that surprised. So that's something that I really enjoyed about getting to know the character. I'm like, okay, somebody with a real comfort level in the world of magic. Because I got to admit, my history with Zatanna is sketchy, in the sense that I've read her a lot in JLA, but I haven't read a lot of her solo stuff. Or if I had, I've read like a one-shot here and there. So this, for me, is something that's very new to be able to read her monthly. And I'm really enjoying this more and more. It is funny, though. We've talked about this before with other series where you're just getting your head around and getting to know a character. I know her a lot more from guest appearances in Batman and her relationship with Bruce. And, the Batman the Animated Series and seeing her in that end. And like I said, team books. What is your exposure to Zatanna?
Very, very limited. I think the biggest exposure I had to Zatanna was the Seven Soldiers of Victory. That's my main exposure to her, was just her involvement in that. And
which was a great miniseries.
Yeah, it's a great miniseries, and it was a great, just exploration of who she was, and it was a cool Zatanna story. So that's actually my exposure to it. That and the fact that she did the mind wipe of Bruce and all that stuff when it came out, and when I read that from Identity Crisis. So that's pretty much it. I, knew who she was, and the Seven Soldiers kind of made me realize, okay, this is a pretty cool character. She's got some pretty good history. And then just as time has gone on, a little bit here, a little bit there, the Zatanna series itself has really been a nice eye-opener in showing that she can, she is a hero. She is beyond just saying words backwards and, doing magic spells. You can't just be dependent on, that one power. You have to be able to be a little bit versatile, and you can't be a one-trick pony if you're going to be in the Justice League. And I think I'm really, as time has gone on with this series, I'm really seeing why she was a member of the Justice League, why she is a confidant to some of the big names in DCU.
And it's a new status quo for her and a new supporting cast than anything that we've read before with her, which to me is interesting. We're getting to know, and it also adds some weight to the fact that Mikey goes into her apartment and is looking around and like, I'm used to you vanishing. This is something that happens. You go off on missions, because we haven't seen a lot of Zatanna in a single location. Where you get to see her in one place for a long time. Plus, she travels for her magic act. So forget just the superheroing. She's a magician, so she's a stage show, which means, she's going to play some dates here, some dates there. She's going to, be moving around a lot. That's part of her job. So she wouldn't have a lot of roots. Her bed is probably the closest thing to roots. I love the bed with the little, with the wooden, looking like a tree coming over there.
Yeah.
Obviously adding to the whole magic theme. But looking at, okay, I thought you got you into something a little bit weird when I saw the ropes on the bed. Turns out, she finds out later, after there's an extensive amount of time that she's gone, that, okay, when I saw they were marionette strings, I thought maybe I should look into this a little bit more.
And I also liked how when she's sitting there and you get that little chuckle moment, but then the next panel you get that serious. She's like, I saw it was in the exact same position it was when I left it.
Yeah.
It wasn't even just the fact that, because she then said, the marionette strings as well, but it was a nice combination. You start seeing that she's got her own little deductive skills. She's got her own little she's been in the game, she's been around the game enough to know, okay, I got to start looking into it. What's going on here? And then she remembered how she was freaked out by the one puppet. So things started just, expanding on the mystery to her. And she started going off and looking into that. And I thought that was a cool kind of play and showing of her character and her strengths as a person.
I like the attention to detail. On that page we're talking about, in the first panel you see her with her ball cap on, the overalls, and the jacket. In the second panel, we're seeing a different outfit. She's got a different shirt on. I like, and we don't have the hat on now. Her hair's done up in the back in like a ponytail. You got the sweat on the brow because now we're starting to get worried. And I just like little details like that to add to suspense, to build the drama. To also remind us this is a female character whose hair's going to be done up a little bit differently each time, whether she's working or not. We're going to see a little bit of a difference from her. I like that. And the way she's done up then in these later panels and the coloring, great job on the coloring on this one and the flashback sequences. They almost look like a film-like flashback sequence, and they're a little more muted than the main panels. But then we get back in the main panels, and it was funny. We're in the middle of this. She's still a puppet. Again, still a puppet. And with the second the officer's brought up, Zatanna kind of brushes it off. But did he say anything about me?
Yeah.
And I like that kind of stuff. Brother Knight's back, who is an interesting character from the earlier arcs. And that's one of the funny things. This is a series with a lot of potential. Because we've seen the Brother Knight arc, but I feel like just now we're starting to develop a lot more of the supporting cast. A lot more of a direction for Zatanna, 11 issues in. So it's something for me right now. I'm anticipating more of where we can go with this series now. It does feel to me like I know this is like a wrapping up of this Puppet Master arc, but for me it does feel like also a beginning of a direction with Zatanna. And adding a little bit more to her history. And where she's going to be going in the future. She's one of those characters that I am very anxious to follow as this continues on.
Oh, definitely. Definitely want to see where it goes. And, Brother Knight's not done yet. There's going to be another Brother Knight story arc. And it's kind of neat to see just her dealing with him when she's on neutral ground. And I always like that concept that the magic users, good and evil, both sides have those neutral zones where you could sit there and you can be eyeballing someone who just recently tried to kill you, but you can't do anything. And this is the wrong time, this is the wrong place for it. And I thought that is something I really dig about the whole magic scene. And it's kind of an interesting concept if you start thinking about it, because these heroes and villains can be in the same spot. Everything can be fine. Why can't they extend that on to the outside? Well, the villain's got this thing that they need to do. The hero, of course, is trying to stop that. And it's just the nature of who they are. And I like seeing that kind of interaction.
Now, with Hampel, when he wakes up, and then he gets all the magic items, and he's ready to turn Mikey into this puppet too. Again, establishment of evil. He was trapped in that form for so long. And to now be in a position where he's willing to do this to somebody else, besides, like, I understand the need for revenge to a certain extent on Zatanna. I get that. But now to be willing to do it to this girl just because she was trying to rescue her friend? Wow, the evil in him. But she's so confident saying, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Yeah. I'm not the person you want to be hitting with magic. And it bounces back on him. That was great. I loved that whole bit, the way it played out, showing that she's aware of her enchantments and what they will do to protect her, which I'll be interesting to see where that plays off as time goes on, too.
Yeah, and when he gets blasted back into being the puppet, again, really cool moments where he's like, I'm a puppet again. And it just... I'm
Stringleshanks again.
It's one of those moments where if this was like a TV show or a movie or something, you would get a great pop from the audience. Just because, again, it's the poetic or puppetic justice, however you want to word it.
Now, the locked milk can, lid be sealed.
Yeah.
He's trapped in there, right?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Now, I think she'd be justified in leaving him there.
Yeah. Kind of a fitting prism for him.
Because, I mean, what else do you do with him?
Yeah, it's... Because we know that he did actually commit the horrific actions that, her father, imprisoned him for. So we know it falls into the whole category of, should the hero play judge and jury? Should she have the right to keep him locked up there, or should she try to turn him back into a human and then put him in jail? I think you could have a very interesting discussion if you start looking at just the moral conscience and the moral code behind it. But for me, I say this is justice. I say this is an appropriate prison sentence for him. He was willing to sentence innocent people to this fate, and we know he's a murderer. And we know he's a murderer who will do it again. So I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I know. That's not very heroic. I know what I said. Yeah. I'm like, it's not very heroic. But I'm like, he tried turning her into a puppet and keeping her there permanently. He did actually succeeded. Well, that was a happy accident for him, but he certainly wasn't going out of it. He was going to leave her trapped forever in the museum. And I guess, you know what? That becomes then, though, as a hero, do I stoop to his level? Or do I take the moral high ground? And I get, you know what, that's where I'll correct myself and say, you know what, she's got to take the moral high ground. Otherwise, she winds up being the person who took away mind wiping, what she did all those villains back in the day. So to be honest, she can't do it. She's got to find a better way.
Well, here's my thought on this. Okay, we know he killed innocent people before to get turned into a puppet.
Right.
He didn't learn his lesson the last time because he was more than willing to do it again to Zatanna and to Mikey. So if he had gone before a trial, he would get, death penalty or life in prison without possibility of parole. So I'm thinking life as a puppet sealed inside the Houdini milk can is prison without possibility of parole. I'm comfortable with it. But then again, I'm not a hero, so...
Now, Dr. Bodhi, at the end, do you think her appearance changes based on who she is with? Or
definitely.
Is that how that works?
Oh, definitely. I don't think we've seen her true form. Neither one of these two forms are her true form. Because you think about it, you're a psychologist, or a psychiatrist, you got to be able to, relate to your patient needs to be comfortable with you. They need to relate to you. There needs to be that connection, that vibe, that, comfort. And with Zatanna, while the demon-looking type of creature she probably would be comfortable with, just because she's Zatanna, why go through that and make yourself appear to be human? Then with Brother Knight, a normal human probably would be a little discomforting for him. He's not going to want to talk to just some human. Oh, here's one of his own kind. Here's another freaky demon type thing. So I definitely think her form changes with whoever she's dealing with.
Now we're going to be seeing Brother Knight again for some form of violence or some kind of confrontation because there's no way he's going there to reform.
Oh, big time. And it's you think back earlier in the issue, they talk about how he's kind of getting free and starting to, manipulate things because the cop boyfriend or cop kind of future love interest is dealing with Brother Knight right now, so he could use her help with that. And I think, if not the next story arc, a future story arc soon is going to be dealing with Brother Knight.
I like the idea in Magic stories where you have these neutral grounds. Like, for example, Zatanna could fight with Brother Knight right now because he escaped. So this would be a great opportunity for her to take him down again. Because in the beginning of the issue, when Mikey brought up Brother Knight, Zatanna was saying one thing at a time, meaning that this would be something she was realizing she'd have to take care of. So this would be a perfect opportunity for her to do that. But I'm guessing you can't do that here.
Yeah, it's probably, the protection spells and or kind of the no magic done here type of, spells, wards, and or whatnot.
And that's something where I think Zatanna as a book has a lot of opportunity. It's going to be great to see her acting and reacting on Earth, but it's also going to be great to see what kind of other places does she access that have different rules and different laws that she has to deal with when trying to take down those who might be doing things to her or potentially doing things to our plane of existence, because she's going to be able to deal with different planes of existence in her magic use. I like that kind of stuff because it does add this sense of the unexplored DC Universe, the things we don't get to see that much out of that. It was something I did like about books like Shadow Pact, and I'm glad to see it here. The other thing I really enjoyed about seeing her with Dr. Bodhi is you've got this smart, sexy character who, and that's always been the thing with Zatanna, who always seems very confident in situations, but to see a vulnerable side of her, to see that there is another facet to her personality, that these years with her dad where she felt like she was being, manipulated and coming to terms with that. And I loved how she gave the doctor the puppet saying, hey, this is my way of kind of moving on and, embracing, through this experience that I've gone through, my own sense of self-worth, my own sense of independence from these past memories. Because there comes a point in time where you need to face these things, take ownership of them, and start to move forward. And she's doing that here. I love seeing those moments because, again, this is where comics get inspirational. We've all got things in our lives that we've got to kind of buckle up and move on from, and this is a great example of that. I really enjoyed that aspect of this issue, seeing that from her, because I don't feel like I know her very well. I know her as a hero, and you got to understand, when I say I don't feel like I've known her very well, I've been reading this character since the 70s. So I do know this character, but I've never had this kind of exploration with her. It's always been her interactions with others, teaming up in this book, guest appearance here, popping in there. Seven Soldiers that you mentioned, where we introduced a supporting cast there. But that was something where I'm like, we never got it taken then to series. Seeing this in series is great for her. She's one of those characters that I'm very interested in. So I'm hoping this, I said at the beginning of this, I'm hoping this book is doing well, because this issue in particular has me energized, and it is fun. This is one of those where the art team has kicked up a notch, and it's taken this book up higher in my stack. I will, when the next issue comes out, I'm going to, especially, I know that there's a guest issue coming up. I don't know if it's the next one or the one after. Matthew Sturgis is doing the writing, and Stefan Roux is going to be on, the original artist is going to be back on again for a single issue, and then it's back to this creative team. This is a book now, though, I'll be interested in that fill-in issue. I will be interested in the following issues because this has gotten me hooked in, and it was this issue in particular that did. Which is funny. It's at the end of the arc, which is a good spot because you want an arc to end in a crescendo where you're like, wow, I care. I want to see more of the adventures. That's the important thing when you do a story arc in comics is by the end you gotta reward the readers and make them invested in the characters. And it's interesting to see how this arc ended with a different art team, and yet that added to the whole experience. They wrapped up the storyline in a brilliant way, but yet left me wanting more. And that's really key in comics when you're doing this, with the periodicals. You got to make me I want to tune into issue 12 now. Jim, I want to talk a little bit about Superman 710. This is Straczynski and Robertson, Foreman and Barrows, again on this issue. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this, it was a great opportunity for us to finally see... We saw Dick Grayson, Batman, with Superman, earlier on in this series. having this confrontation with Superman, really talking about his concerns, but there's a different relationship there between the two. And I loved how they played off of the difference in the relationship, because it's all the more poignant when we get Bruce in this issue. Mm-hmm. I so wanted to see this, because we haven't really seen a heart-to-heart with these two since the return. And it's great to see them back together again and having a conversation in this where Bruce is really talking about, like, hey, what's going on with you? And it's funny how Clark being able to open up with Bruce, this almost motivates Clark to start coming out of his funk even more. Because one of the things I like about Grounded is it's not just about Superman walking from place to place. There is a big bad here. And it's something I keep forgetting as I'm reading along. Superman, part of what he's going through is manipulation because of the loss. And Bruce can identify with the loss of family and the loss of parents. And this is something where, I know Clark never knew his birth parents, and Bruce is pointing to that, but saying, you had this opportunity now to connect with these people, this race of yours. And this, you lost your dad, Jonathan Kent. You got these people here who've come in, and this is your chance to have a family. And now they were all taken away from you, and you're dealing with that loss. I understand that loss, but I also understand who you are. And these moments that these two have where Clark's also dealing with who he is, I thought it was just great writing, and it was something that I really wanted to see at this point. And I'm really getting to the point, I don't know if you're at this, this is leading me to where, okay, we've kind of come to this point at the end of this issue where I'm ready now. We've got to see in the next couple issues the confrontation with whoever's pulling the strings, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. We're getting to the point where Clark is working through his stuff. He needed his time. He needs to face it. He had to think things out. And he's getting to that point where he is, confronting it. He is confronting the emotional baggage and just the pain that he hasn't really felt and or accepted, embraced, or however you want to look at it. And I think this was a cool moment, just one, because it's a Clark and Bruce moment. Two, there was the neat thing with the ultraviolet light S that was shining that only Superman could see. I thought that was a nice way to get his attention because, and it's something only Batman would think of to do. And it was just that great little friendly banter between the two of them that they can get away with, because they're on the equal and the level. And just then going from this present day to remembering the time in the past, again, I thought this was a nice way to do the story and kind of bring it out and just give Clark those moments where he could reflect on what's been in the past, what he has to look forward to in the future.
Now, here's the funny thing. We were just on an episode, and it's going to be coming up to be released soon, of Comic Timing, where we talked about the variations on Bruce's costume that we've seen, where it's the same basic gray part of it, but there's some variations on the cape. There's some variations on the gloves, depending on who's drawing it. I like the Eddie Barrows version of this. I thought it looked really good.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I agree. And this is kind of has the traditional gloves and not the so much armored gloves, but you still see a little bit of the tubing on the costume that we've seen before. So this is a nice costume. This looks pretty cool.
Now, I guess here's the thing. I guess trying to explain it now. It's funny. I've been thinking about this a lot since the Comic Timing discussion because I thought it was an interesting point. Talking about the costume and talking about do those variations bother you? I think we've seen throughout the years, forgetting just this costume, different artists draw Batman a little bit differently, as far as how functional the gloves are, how functional the belt is, how functional this is, that is. And I guess I'm used to seeing that distinction. I don't know that it's ever really bothered me. Does it ever does it bother you? Because it was a point that was brought up there, and I thought we had a very interesting discussion about it. But that was in a single issue setting where we were talking about how it changed within the issue. And that's a little bit different than what's going on when you see a different art team tackling it. Like, for me, I really enjoyed this different take on the costume. It never took me out of that this isn't... I totally took it this is the same Batman we're seeing in his other appearances in Batman Inc. and in Dark Knight and everywhere else we're seeing Bruce, in Generation Lost and stuff like that where we've seen him recently. I don't mind different artistic takes on this version of the costume, or any version for that matter. Do you?
Well, the funny thing is I can be a bit nitpicky at times, but for some reason with Batman, as long as there are certain things that are done, I don't have an issue with the variations. Like, for example, whenever we have Bruce, I need to have the yellow circle with the black, bat symbol in it. Whereas whenever I see Dick in the costume, I need to see that flat black. Any other change they can, they want to modify and tweak it, I'll be okay with. But just that the centerpiece for me on each one of them is what I need to see. Because one, that's my guide, so I know which one's which. But two, I think that's such a fundamentally different, between the two costumes that's something I think needs to go through and follow through. So when an artist has their own little kind of takes, little variations on the costume, I don't have issues with that just because. The way I think about it is Bruce is going to have, and so will Dick have, multiple costumes. They'll have little variations. Maybe this is a better one for the temperature. We can't see how warm or how cold it is out there, or maybe this is his windy costume that he needs, so that's why it has these little variations. Or, I don't know, just maybe this is his Tuesday outfit, so it's I'm okay with little variations as long as that one big boom is there.
That's funny when you mentioned Batman, because I actually, it's funny, the second you said that, I'm like, wow, why doesn't this bother me? Because you're right, it's like, I do notice it with characters, and I did notice it with Bruce, but it didn't bother me. I actually really liked the take on it. I'm like, wow, great job by Eddie Barrows and the whole art team on this. I love the look, I like the way the cape was laid out and all that, it works for me. I don't know that I would be as forgiving if we were saying this about Superman. Do you know, would you?
Well, here's the thing with Superman, the only thing I really notice when people do differences, it's on the cape length. And, some people will draw it a little bit longer cape, some a little bit shorter. And that's something I notice, but it doesn't bother me when someone does I personally prefer a longer Superman cape. Just because it's just, I don't know, I think it looks kind of cool. They can do kind of a draping effect, or have it completely over the shoulder. And for some reason, the smaller cape, I'm like, that works, for other characters, but for Superman, I want a nice, big, regal-looking long cape. But even as I'm saying that, like this Superman, his cape is what I would consider the smaller design, the shorter design. I don't have an issue with it. But it's just my personal preference. I'd like to see it a little longer.
I guess what I'm saying, though, taking it one step further, the cape, regardless of the cape length, this is the basic Superman costume we're pretty used to. I'm talking about, like, if we saw him right now dressed in the Earth 1 version of the costume, I'd probably take some issue with it, because I'd be like, well, no, this isn't really how Superman dresses. Yeah. I don't know, and you're right when you said the word nitpicky before. That stuff, it's minor nitpicks that don't ever take me out of the story. I notice them more. For Batman, for some reason, it never bothers me. Other characters, it might in a nitpicky sense. Going back to what you're saying, and 100% agreeing with you that that's all it really is. But I do find that I get a little bit more nitpicky with other characters until I get used to the artist's take on it.
Yeah.
And I should add that caveat into there. After I get used to, because if it's an artist who's got to run on a series, and especially when they're working with the character, they'll do their own little take on the costume or, the character's presentation. After I get invested into that artist's take on it, then I'm completely done. It's like it no longer bothers me. All nitpicks go out the window because I'm like, this is this artist's take. I start to get really into what the artist is doing and their theme, especially if there's a lot of consistency to that. I don't have an issue with it. It was funny on this one, though. I was trying to wrap my head around why does it never really bother me with Batman? It never does. I'm usually always with Batman, and because I'm a bat nut. I'm usually like, cool, look at that take on Batman. Or look at what that artist is trying to do with him. I love what they did because the cape, for some reason, for me, is the one thing that I love when artists do different things with the cape. Because I love the way that they will make it look certain ways, flow certain ways, wrap around him in certain ways that maybe make him look more imposing or more... You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's something about it, and I'm like, I totally forgive everything with Batman because I love that artists are like, cool, this is my chance to really interpret the character. And so it is funny how that character, there's a lot more elastic with him for me, and I guess maybe because I've read a lot more Batman. And I'm used to seeing different takes on him. Maybe that's what it is. Other characters I might not be as forgiving because I'm not used to seeing as many different takes concurrently, if that would make sense. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Like, for example, when I look at this version of the Batcape, I see the kind of like the piping in the cape itself. So it's like kind of over the frame, over like a wire frame. And, not always do you get that in a bat costume. Sometimes it's more fluid and more just a solid, cloth type material. And it always kind of gets me thinking, okay, maybe this is the quote-unquote hang glider style. Yeah. So this was the kind that he could, and turn into wings, and he brought it there for whatever reason. And it's always little variations like that I can justify the little tweaks in the costume. And sometimes I'm justifying it in my head and just even subconsciously. Other times I'm looking at it going, yeah, okay, I could see you probably want that for this train.
I like the hang glider idea, because what does that say about him as a Batwing mechanic? I think I'm going to wear the hang glider version just in case.
Hey, he's Batman. He's prepared for everything.
That's right. He's like Crash.
Well, I'm thinking more of in case a supervillain attacks him and he's got to abandon ship. That's what I'm thinking.
I am a big fan of seeing younger Bruce and Clark together. This was cool, because this is something we don't get to see. Seeing that they had an experience where they met each other before but didn't really know each other. So this was an opportunity to really see how they could kind of develop a mutual respect but also a wariness about each other early on. I loved this bit. They referenced before Magpie, which I loved that issue with Magpie way back when that they did with the two of them. But seeing them together at Nanda Parbat and see, knowing what Bruce is there for, knowing why Clark was there in this story, and seeing them converge. And it was a great use, if you're going to do a different art team, do it in this sequence of events to set it off from the original story. I really dug this.
Well, they weren't at Nanda Parbat. They were at Boutrain.
Oh, I'm sorry, Boutrain. I don't know why I was thinking.
This is could lead to the gateway to Nanda Parbat.
That's right.
And the thing that got me, the first time I read through this, I wasn't that comfortable with the story. And the reason behind it was, my initial read through, I was like, one, this is a story that never been out there before. But two, I was like, would Bruce and Clark be that comfortable with revealing, themselves to somebody that they didn't know? And I had a difficult time getting around it the first read through. It wasn't until my second read through and I started really paying attention to their relationship with the daughter of this master that they both studied under, that it really kind of sank in why they were so comfortable. They weren't comfortable with each other, they were comfortable with her. And both of these characters have those, that mindset where if I trust you, I trust your judgment. And you're telling me I can reveal myself in front of this person, I trust you, I will trust them. And it was an uneasy alliance. And then even later on, when they're fighting the bad guys, you see Bruce is once again wearing a mask over his face. The mask isn't for Clark. The mask is for now these bad guys who she doesn't trust, who's not in the trust circle. But, and I thought, and it did take the second read-through for me really to understand it. And it was then that I really appreciated the story even more on the second read-through.
They never reveal themselves to each other, though.
No. But when I say reveal, I mean, right there, Clark just told him that he's from Smallville and he's a journalist.
Right.
So that would give, anybody with, half of the cognitive abilities to pretty much figure out that, could track him down, figure out who he is. And same thing with Bruce saying he's from Gotham. And, there's one, he's got a very recognizable face, as Bruce Wayne, or he will be in the future.
But he also, you got to remember though too, he's not Batman yet. I didn't take this as Clark Kent being Superman. I took it, these two guys have not developed their identities yet. Right. I should say the costumed identities. So it's an interesting meeting between the two. First of all, they never reveal names, but they aren't the public figures that they will be. Also, Clark, when he reveals he's from Smallville, Kansas, has no reason to really think that he's going to be in Superman mode. Because he really avoids that until the very end when it's completely necessary in battle to take on that role. And even at that point, there is no Superman for him to out. I agree with you in what you're saying. I think, and I agree with you in the sense that one thing I enjoyed in multiple read-throughs of this particular issue was this idea that the two of them, even though they were in this location, the situation put them in a position, especially with protecting this girl, that they had to act. Yet they never at any point in time reveal names. That was something that never got revealed, and I liked that about it. Was that even though I think by the end there was a sense of respect, and it might have even opened to a certain extent Bruce's eye as saying, "Hey, I usually work alone," but in his inner dialogue, he's like, wow, this is showing me that maybe there is a reason to work with somebody else. Look at how effective this is. Maybe I need to rethink those things. This is opening up somebody who we know is very close-minded when he gets an idea in his head to something else. To me, this furthered both characters and showed an origin of the two of them where there was a meeting, a chance encounter between the two. Didn't really know who each other was yet. And now 100% going back to what you're saying, do I think Clark Kent, the reporter, went back and tried to figure out who that guy was? Absolutely. Do I think that Bruce Wayne, being the guy that is known for his knowledge, the detective, didn't figure out who the Smallville reporter was, Clark Kent? I 110% agree with you that was what happened there. But I don't think the two was necessarily aware of who the other was that they were dealing with. So I don't know how much risk they thought they were putting themselves at. Well, and that might have been a lesson learned.
Well, I don't think at the time they knew who each other was, but I know for a fact that Bruce, when this got done, he did his homework and he figured out who Clark was. He had to.
We know that, Jim. Wait, you know why hold on though. We know that already, right? Because they're sharing the story. Right. So they had to, because they're not going to say, "Oh, that was you." Yeah, they didn't know it was each other, so they've had this discussion before.
Yeah, but that we're kind of arguing the same point, just saying it differently. So
that's my point. I don't know where you're that's the point I'm trying to make to you right now is that I agree.
I know, and that's why I'm stopping myself, going, Jim, he's agreeing with you. Be quiet,
right? Because you're like sitting here, I'm
argue mode,
right? But my point was, I think this is a great story, and I don't think this deconstructs or ruins anything that has gone before between the two of them, because I think the situation called for them to act, and they did. And like you, I agree. I love that when Bruce finally got into the fight, that we see him put on the mask, like, let me hide my face from others. He's revealed himself to Clark because I think he's realized at this point he's dealing with a good guy. And if I'm going to take this risk and we have to protect, like you said, we have to protect her, I have to reveal myself. And I think Clark has already gotten a respect for Bruce at this point. They don't know each other, but I think as on the battlefield, the two have realized, hey, if there's a time to act and a time to put potential trust into somebody in a risky situation, we have to do it now and with this person. And I like that about it. I like that it was an instinctual thing. I'm a fan of that between combatants on a battlefield, that sometimes instinct kicks in and you just do something because you know in that moment. And I think it's something you probably appreciate with your, military history and all that, and how much you've been into that in your family. On the battlefield, you sometimes just have to put your faith in those around you, because otherwise, if you don't, they're not going to put their faith in you, and then you're both going to be at risk. They both needed to act, and they needed to trust that the other person was going to do what they needed to do, and that they could trust that person in that moment. Otherwise, that girl would have probably been dead.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Oh, and it's definitely a neat, the whole warrior code, and especially seeing how they were going up against, Vandal Savage, so it's, again, whenever you're dealing with the ancient societies, you're dealing with those ancient codes, throwing him in the mix as the villain's a nice, neat touch, especially because it's, Bruce is even thinking, this really wasn't the first time he met him. He just didn't know it at the time. And I thought that was a nice nod to everything that happened with the return of Bruce Wayne.
I loved that was thrown in. Because to me, that you're showing now that Bruce has been through something different than he's been through at that time. And this would also explain why this memory is kind of fresh to him. Mm-hmm. Because, he's reanalyzing his meetings with Vandal Savage and realizing, wow, I've known this guy a lot longer than he realizes.
and even Vandal has the reaction to the bats, which stems from his previous encounter when he first dealt with the, Bruce as that cave bat, creature. And I thought that was a nice little touch, as well as just to add on where he's like, you can see him just said, oh, bats again, and I thought that was cool.
But it was funny when he said the bats and he sees the man swinging in. I don't think his reaction was just to the bats. I think his reaction was to the man on the rope. as well. Because he says bats, no, it can't be. So you got to even take it back. Is it that guy again? Is it him? Am I being cursed by this? In that moment, he's having flashbacks to that memory. I mean, that was a really deep moment, and I love that. I think for fans that have read Return of the Bruce Wayne, that was a really nice nod. And this is, again, you talk about where does continuity work. This is where it works. If you didn't read Return of the Bruce Wayne, you can move along. If you're a Superman fan and just read Superman and all that, you'll enjoy this moment for what it is. For those of us that did, there's a little wink and a nod. And I like those bits. That's a great moment.
Yeah, it's now you know the rest of the story.
So I really, really enjoyed all of this with the whole quest. And
one of the comments that I really digged was when they're talking about this time when they had that little bit of downtime, and Clark is playing with the children, and Bruce even comments how he wouldn't be as comfortable around the children. Here's this massive powerhouse who can then bring himself down to the level of the children, and then later Clark's talking to him about it. You say you rarely work alone, but you've always had these partners. And you bring in children into the mix, first with Dick, with Barbara, with Tim. And I thought that, again, is a cool analogy of who Bruce is. Because when he's getting started, when he's going through this training process, and when he's first, before he even becomes the Batman, he's got these mindsets on where he's going to be, but in reality, life took him in a kind of a swerve. There's still that rigid discipline and strive for vengeance and justice, but there is a change to him and how he looks at life, and I thought that was a cool point to bring it up when it's just back in present day and the two friends are talking.
I love how they kept referring back to characters like Iron Monroe and the Crimson Adventure, though. And with the Crimson Adventure, Bruce is like, well, he was a loner. I get that. And that may have worked for him, and it did work for me at one point. But now I need to think bigger. I need to, if one Superman can do this, and I love how he references back to him, think about a whole squad of Superman can do. And we've seen that, glimpse of the future where that could be potentially a future for Superman. I love that little nod to say, hey, this could be something. But first, before you can do that, Clark's even asking him, what about your responsibility to these people? You are unleashing this. You are putting people in this place and making them part of Batman Inc. It isn't just your mission anymore. You're making your mission their mission. So what about your responsibility to them? I like that moment because that's something Bruce has to live with and deal with is, am I doing the right thing here? And I like Bruce's thinking. He's like, this is my opportunity to give something to the whole world, to aid the whole world by having these agents that do that. I like this idea. This is where the concept of Batman Inc. really is working for me. Whether Bruce will always feel that way remains to be seen. But right now I'm really digging it. And I like how Bruce said, though, I've come to terms with who I am. This is what he's telling Clark. But first, you need to find a way to come to terms with your loss and conquer your doubts. And if you ever need help, you know how to reach me. The smile there between the two of them. And the whole shyness symbol up into the sky. Sometimes the old ideas. I mean, these are moments that you get these moments in very isolated bits with Bruce Wayne. We see this with Alfred. We see it with Commissioner Gordon from time to time. When we see it with Superman, this is where I want to see the world's finest. These are these two characters that there is a familiarity and a trust between these two that goes all the way back to when Bruce was searching for, Nanda Parbat and all that, the whole bit that we were talking about at the beginning, which is why that was in my head. But forgetting that was something where they met each other back then and there was an instinct that showed them that they could on some level trust each other, that has grown to this. It wasn't there then, but it sure is now. And Clark, at the end of that page, man, we need you out in the light. I am hoping he's at peace now, right? Or close.
If he's not at peace, he's almost there. We got to be getting close to the, just the Clark at comfort and Clark, in terms with who he is and what's going on. Especially because he's able to vocalize what he's dealing with now. Because you think about when he first started on the journey, he couldn't really say what was broken. He couldn't say what was wrong with him. He needed to get back grounded to the earth. He needed to get back, just feel the soil again. And he couldn't explain what he was going through. Now he's able to vocalize it with Bruce. Now he's able to vocalize it with himself even. And I think that's, obviously a sign that he's getting better. Once you're able to rationalize, once you're able to put a face and or name or a concept or just an idea behind what the issue is, that's the first step in really dealing with it. And either I don't want to say overtaking it, because sometimes you can't overtake something. It's you confront it, you deal with it, and it either becomes a part of you, or maybe there is a workaround. Maybe there's something that it's a way of looking at it so it's no longer an issue for you. I'm not exactly sure on how they're going to go with this, but he's at that stage where he's now able to look at it and know what the it is. And I think that's a cool part, especially just you kind of see him flying off again. And I love seeing just that, the smile. And the smile on Batman's face is really neat, but I love seeing that smile on Clark's face, because that's something we haven't seen in a lot of the grounded issues.
Well, and talk about, he's gone through a loss of Bruce, too. He went through that. And now having Bruce back is something that I think is a unique experience for him. Because he got Bruce back, was it during this?
No. Bruce came back before, well...
See?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think Bruce came back after Krypton was destroyed.
I also think he came back some point during Grounded. Was he back when Dick Grayson was monitoring him?
Yes, I think so. No. Yeah. No, wait.
I don't think he was. I don't think he was. I think Bruce has come back during Grounded. So this is now a moment where he's gained something back into his life. And maybe this is helping to counter whatever Superman's going through. One of the things that is helping him counter it. I think Lois's reaction to all this is helping too. I want to know, I guess where I'm going with this, I need to see an end game to this now. Let's start heading in that direction. I'm not saying it has to be summed up next issue, but this is the turning point now. Where is this going? This was a fantastic issue. Yay, thumbs up, loved it. Great artwork, both art teams really told a cool, rich story. I want to see now. We've seen this, behind the scenes that there's some manipulation of Superman going on. Now it's time. We've got him in a certain position right now where I'm like, to take him back from this and put him back in that state, does that make sense to you?
Right, yeah. I think it's time to move forward. And
yeah.
I'm curious to see where it goes. Again, Grounded's the series where, from the beginning, I've always been curious on the journey. I want to see where it's going to, and I want to see where it's going to end up. And so, again, it still keeps my interest. It still keeps me piqued up. We're seeing more signs of the Clark that I'm comfortable, that I know well, and coming back out of the darkness, if you will. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Yeah, that's what I guess what I'm saying is this is an appropriate build to now let's start heading into the end game. Let's start building. We should be building to that right now. And I mean that is complimentary. I think this is a good issue to start building to that. We're now climbing up a set of stairs into a direction that, okay, this is it. This is time for Superman to come back and put him in that point where we're going to start seeing him in Action Comics again. We're going to see him, I want to see that at this point. I'm excited. Good pump-up issue.
Amen.
Hope this craft can withstand this powerful force.
This first interview right here is with Paul Storrie, right from the Chicago Comic-Con. And actually, what happened was they did this first interview together, and then they started talking about another project of Paul's. So you'll actually have Paul later on in the episode as well. And I encourage you to listen to both of them because they're great interviews.
And we are back at C2E2, and I am being joined by Mr. Paul Storrie. Welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your project?
New project's coming out next month. It's called Made for Each Other. It's part of a new line of books called My Boyfriend is a Monster, Graphic Universe. It's a division of Warner Publishing. I like to say it's the paranormal romance of Twilight, kind of filtered through the snarky but affectionate tone of Shaun of the Dead. So there's some angst, there's some teen romance, but there's a lot of fun, a lot of funny action, adventure. It's everything. What do we call it? Action, comedy, romance, adventure book.
Yeah, a rom-com plus kind of story.
Yeah, there you go. But the plus is a good way to put it, because I try and hit every base, but still keep kind of the tone, a little bit of the feel of the. For example, Made for Each Other. Each one Each of the boyfriend of this monster has to do with a different type of monster. The first book that's coming out called I Love 'Em to Pieces that I didn't write, that one is about zombies. Made for Each Other is about the Frankenstein monster.
Nice.
That was a lot of fun. Kind of playing it. It's this small Alaskan town, and a new undertaker comes to town. The lead character, Maria, falls in love with his son, and it turns out that there's a lot of more problems than they expected.
I kind of imagine the son of an undertaker. There'd be some issues there.
Yeah. Especially when he wasn't exactly born the usual way.
Now, I heard you talking earlier about it, and you're saying how it's a series of books, but you don't need to read issue 1 to read issue 2.
Right. The only connection is the theme of My Boyfriend is a Monster, and also there are a couple of background characters, and this is something that the publisher actually came up with. It's these characters who basically, they're teachers, and they move sort of from school to school, trying to get away from the weirdness at one school and landing into it at another. So they're the only recurring characters, but they're a lot of fun to kind of play with, and so people kind of pick up on those from book to book. But the first, you don't need to read the first book to read the second. There's several others coming out. Each one stands alone, except for the theme and a couple of people following through.
Now, just the comedical aspect and like the teen angst put into it,
Yeah.
That for me, seeing people capture it and connect with it correctly is always an impressive thing, because I remember what I was like when I was a teenager, but I don't think I could pull up today's youth or that.
It's funny because although like some of the kind of trappings are different, I didn't have the internet to deal with when I was a kid and that sort of thing, but I mean the experiences, the feelings are all pretty much there. One of the things I actually did was the high school that they attend, I based just the floor plan. I based on the floor plan of my high school.
Nice.
Just to kind of bring it up, bring up the feelings and the familiarity. Plus, it's amazing when you're doing that you can just kind of go like, oh yeah, there's the room over here, and you go down the hall and you turn here and you go to. It was sort of easy to drop back into that sense memory of high school. My building had a junior high and high school together, and there was like the junior high hallway of lockers. There was sort of a whole different feel going through there. Like if upperclassmen were walking through, everybody was sort of like, oh, what's going on? I tried a lot of tricks like that to just sort of bring up as many memories. I actually went through my old high school yearbooks, which is kind of scary.
Oh God, yeah, I could have just bringing back some tales of terror from high school and junior high, and no, thank you.
It definitely, it's such an emotionally powerful period. The ups and the downs are so strong, and that's one of the great reasons why writing preteen and teenagers. It's so visceral, it's so powerful, and yet you don't have to apologize for it, because that's sort of the way things feel then.
I know a lot of teachers, and a lot of them will describe their interactions with kids, and I've got a couple who are like third grade teachers,
right.
And I know, my mom works in a high school, and so her experience with the children are completely different than my friend who's teaching the elementary school age, and as these kids get older, and the emotions and just everything just starts getting kicked up to another level.
I know a bunch of teachers myself. I have several friends that teach, and that's good for being able to pick their brains, to kind of bounce stuff off of, so they can tell me that it feels right, or oh, that's plausible, that's a little bit too far, or whatever. The amazing part is you don't get a lot of that's over the top, because there's so much going on in that time period that everything's a crisis.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's funny because you think about just that period, and I know a lot of people have described children in that period as monsters already.
Yeah.
So now we're having this connection with them with real monsters.
Right.
So it's kind of a good mesh there.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because all of us tend to kind of see people who are other or different as uncomfortable or monstrous even, and sometimes that discomfort that we have with somebody else sort of turns them into a monster. They get treated poorly, or or they're uncomfortable because people don't accept them, and then they end up acting out. So there's a lot of there's a really lot of strong resonance in that. Technically, Tom, the love interest, in one way he's a monster by definition, how he came to be, but he's not necessarily a monster inside. So there's a lot you can play with there, and hopefully done it in a fun way.
He seems like he's more than just the sum of his parts. There is a
That's
man
an excellent way of putting it.
And no
in fact,
pun
I'll be
intended.
stealing that. In fact, I'm texting my
it's
editor
yours.
right now, or start using this phrase. But there is, but Maria, I actually named her Maria McBride.
Nice.
In honor of the Frankenstein
yes.
movies. And she is really the center, though. She's the emotional core. She's the one we're pulling through for. She's the one that kind of has to make it all come together, make everything work, and she's not rescued per se.
Nowadays, you really need that. You do need the strong female, because kids now, there are strong women there out there, and they're looking for somebody who's not just, oh, help me, save me. No, they're going to actually step up and do what they need to. And I like seeing that more responsible writing, but also accurate writing, because I've got a lot of nieces, and none of them are damsels in distress.
I've got a 15-year-old, she's going on 16, niece that has already published an ebook. And I'm like,
nice.
At 16, I was not publishing ebooks. I was struggling with, because I wanted to write, I wanted to draw, I was doing little bits and pieces and short stories and things. No, she put together a novel, published it herself. So yeah,
outstanding.
It is amazing. All my nieces are, and my nephew, great guy. Not to sell him short, but no, all my nieces are really terrific and inspirational in that regard. And actually, I actually started it in comics, writing about the daughter of Robin Hood.
Nice.
So I've done that, and then like at DC, I did the Gotham Girls miniseries, which again, strong female characters, not relying on the guys.
Yeah.
And I really like to do that sort of thing. I hope I do it well. Do the ladies justice, because like you say, it's just there are a lot of really strong, self-sufficient women out there and girls out there, and it's good to have them represented.
So, are you a fan of the original Mary Shelley Frankenstein?
I am a huge fan. That's how this came about. My editor got in touch with me and said, "Oh, we're doing this series," and I said, "Frankenstein?"
Nice.
She's like, what? I'm sorry, I didn't finish that. Can I do Frankenstein?
Nice.
Because I had this idea kind of in the back of my head for a Frankenstein story, and when she told me the premise of the line and everything, I thought, oh, this will be perfect. Yeah, I'm a big fan. And of course, I like a lot of people. The first thing I saw was the old black and white movies, but there are a lot of really powerful concepts and questions in the Frankenstein book about the nature of humanity. Try and explore that a little bit, but it's just and even in the movies, even though the monster would occasionally do things that were horrific, it was mostly in response to bad things done to him.
A lot of it was a self-defense and or even not understanding completely what was going on around him. And when you don't know what to do, your first reaction is strike out.
Yeah. And it's the fight or flight.
Exactly.
And I suppose if you're 8 feet tall and really strong,
well, kind of fight doesn't
a little
go
fighting
with it.
might come naturally, I guess.
Yes. I've always been a fan of the horror genre, but I'm weird in that I enjoy it, but it scares me, so I got to watch which ones. And I find some of the older ones that deal more with the emotional, I enjoy those a lot more.
Yeah.
And then when I pick up the classic literature, I'm like, wow, this is a much better story than the jump out of nowhere and scare you to death.
Yeah, surprise and stab. But it's funny because as a kid, my place to watch horror films was behind the couch. And looking over the top, I was just, I was pretty pretty young at the time, but I just remember, I don't know why the couch was going to protect me, but,
It did.
but I jump on and kind of like peek my head out, and then if it got a little too intense, I just ducked down until it sounded like it went away.
Things look normal. Okay,
Yeah,
I can look
okay,
again. Yeah.
it's
All right, it's safe. Yeah.
Oh, it's a commercial like it.
Where can we find this?
Actually, I'm really excited that the book is going to be available in comic shops, and it'll also be available through bookstores and Amazon. In fact, I think a couple of people told me that they've been able to get it from Amazon already.
Oh, great.
So it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous, and very happy about that. Sometimes, since the publishers usually focused on the schools and the libraries, that's their primary market. Sometimes the stuff comes out in the stores or in comic shops a little later, but this time it's all together, and I'm really excited.
And it looked like a very nice hardcover with a nice solid...
Yeah, it's a library-bound edition, which is a lot pricier because those are costly, but they're rugged. I mean, they're made to withstand the wear and tear of being checked out and everything. But there is also a paperback edition that is still a very nice package. By the way, I've been remiss, I've not mentioned Eldon Cowger, who is the artist on the series. Eldon just did a tremendous job. He's mostly done webcomics up to this point. He's got his web strip, Astray 3, at astray3.com. It's a very moody black and white work. Somebody described it as like, it's really American. It almost has a manga feel, but it doesn't. It's sort of this nice, I'd call it accessible. Fans of kind of American style art or anime or manga style can both appreciate it. Of course, not like manga isn't like a diversity of styles, but I think it's really accessible. I think he did some really great kind of cinematography with it, and it's did a lot with light and shadow that was just tremendous. So people should keep an eye out. Eldon is going to go places, I'm sure.
Outstanding. And again, the name of the book was?
It's called Made for Each Other. It's book 2 of the My Boyfriend is a Monster line.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Reaching melting point. Not sure we can make it.
Hey, Sean and Jim. Name's Brandon. I just started listening to you guys, and I must say, just listening to your candid speech about comics, I had pretty much became a DC fan again. I kind of went over to the other side with Marvel, but whatever's going on over there, it's kind of drawn me back to DC. I kind of want to talk about Flash number 10, a little bit on Flashpoint. Barry Allen, who pretty much was on the bike that our Barry Allen stopped, pretty much said there was something going on in history. So they got me actually thinking. I was really thinking, consists of not from another parallel universe, but actually a parallel Earth. So I'm really thinking about Flashpoint. She pretty much said that Earth, our Earth, or the DC Universe's made Earth, is like the core of all the parallel Earths. So come into play with pretty much Flashpoint. He said something is going to happen in history. I'm thinking maybe there's something that's going to happen in the present that he's going to right now that's going to maybe, I don't know, someone's going to be assassinated, or something's going to happen where it's going to change the course of time, or maybe not even. Maybe it's something earlier that's going to happen before that's going to change everywhere. Maybe Superman never landed in Smallville, or maybe Batman went the other way when he found out when he saw his parents being murdered. I'm just waiting for Flashpoint, and just hearing you guys' comments about it is just really getting me geared up to read it. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the Green Lantern War, and like the last issue of the Emerald Warriors, where Guy Gardner and pretty much when they were on that desolate planet, wherever their meeting spot is, when they were pretty much fighting each other, and they were finally getting out their question, and Guy Gardner was telling him, like, I was the one who reconstructed the Lantern Corps after you became Parallax, and then finally having to deal with the fact that he felt like a replacement when he felt that he was more than a replacement. He felt like he was just, I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just such a emotional scene where you finally saw them open up to each other and finally just I guess they physically shown it in their battle when they finally fought each other, and how serious it was and how emotional, how being a Green Lantern just affects their lives. It's not just a job, it's not just being a superhero, it's a part of who they are. And then it just makes me think that now that they've depowered because Parallax is into the Central Core, would that mean that they'll be picking up another ring? I mean, we already know Guy Gardner and the Red Ring, but what about Hal Jordan and a Blue Ring? I mean, they said a Blue Ring can either recharge a Green Lantern's ring. So what if he becomes a Blue Lantern just for the moment to pretty much bring some sense to the Green Lantern Corps, or maybe he might take Parallax into himself. I kind of do like Jim's idea and his theory on different people taking on different entities, because I would kind of like to see that. Congratulations on 5 years. I must say you guys got another listener. I haven't left anything on the forums, but I'm definitely going to start doing that. And thank you for just suggesting all these comic books. Secret Six, I haven't read it before I started to read it. I think I was reading issue 29 was the first issue that I started reading because you guys. And I'm along for the ride. I just have to get the back issues and the trades just to catch up, because I was gone from the DC Universe so long, I didn't even know that Vandal Savage had a daughter. And now that they're all in hell now and they're fighting to get Knockout, and then to find out at the end that Knockout is supposed to be Ragdoll's fiance, his bride, it's just to see that next issue is going to be wonderful. But I think I left a long message, but I just wanted to say that. All right, you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks.
Never apologize for a long message on this show.
Yeah, we're all a little long-winded here. Come on.
It's actually welcome to the show. It's funny when he talks about switching universes and all that. I've done that many times. I've always kept like a title or two in the other universe that I've followed. But, I've been an avid Marvel reader where I've read everything that Marvel was, well, not everything, but, as much as I possibly could that Marvel was doing. I never had the opportunity to have the kind of budget that I'm working with now, as far as with comics. And even then, I'm pretty much so strapped as far as books that I would want to get. I know we both talk all the time about titles we would love to be reading. We even had a discussion where, geez, wouldn't it be great if we had the time and the money to do a Marvel podcast too? See, what the funny part with that is, if we did that, then there'd eventually be the point in time where we'd sit down and have the discussion. Wouldn't it be great if we had the time and the money to do an independent podcast?
Yeah.
The truth is the time and money to be able to do that. I'd love to do it because I love those universes. But when he was talking about Flashpoint, I've seen, if you take a look at the solicitations, you see that it looks like there's going to be some kind of murder or death coming up. I don't know who that's going to be. I've had some theories, maybe Rip Hunter, maybe the Barry Allen from the Other Earth, because we do know from issue 10 that is Barry Allen from another Earth, an alternate Earth. And that was here, which I didn't see coming. I thought he was a future version of our Barry, or the Flashpoint version, is what I was thinking.
I thought, too.
Yeah, is that what you thought?
Yeah, I definitely thought that was our Barry Allen, Flashpoint, and whatever happened changed, so he didn't get the power of the Flash, but he was able to do it. But looks like he is from another Earth, so I'm wondering, and as soon as I saw that, I started looking, and I'm wondering if maybe he doesn't have the most honorable of intentions.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bart doesn't trust him.
Yeah. What if he wants to make our Earth like his Earth? And that's the point that he's doing. Maybe this new Flashpoint universe is what his normal Earth is. Because he says that, that this Earth is the linchpin. This is the main thing that holds, everyone else, because of this Earth, everyone else, all the other Earths, are off of it. And they kind of shows that pyramid style. What if our Earth became like his world, so his world became the most important? And that's the first thought that I kind of started thinking of when he started talking that way, especially how he was treating Bart, how he was treating Barry, and it just kind of made me wonder this stuff. So I don't know. There's again another Flashpoint reveal, which leads to more questions, which is awesome.
Going off of what you're saying, though, let's go on the other end. Let's say his intentions are noble. who's to say they're the right intentions?
Right.
He's going off on his own mission like he's got the right idea. He knows what to do to correct things. What if in his quote-unquote correcting things, he causes the mess?
Yeah. Could very easily be a problem as well. It's, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities there. I don't know. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. I have theories, and, I'll throw out names like, I think he could die. I think, Rip Hunter could die and all that. The truth of the matter is, I'm not sold on anybody. I actually really like that about the series. I love his theories. Brandon, I'm not, disputing any of your theories. It's actually one of the things I love about passion-filled phone calls like that is we could all be right, we could all be wrong. I mean, there could be little bits and pieces of anything all of us are saying that could be linked and they can be what's actually happening, or we could all be wrong. And that'd be funny too, because I love that we care though about speculating. So always call in with passion like that. I love that he's picking up 6.
yes.
Because that's one of my favorite books. And one of the great things about 6 is if you're enjoying the current series, and let's say you go back and get all the back issues, Brandon, 2 things that you might want to consider picking up if you want to get the complete 6, Villains United, that miniseries, and also the Secret 6 miniseries that followed it. Villains United was actually the kickoff, and then where those characters were introduced as a team, and then the Secret 6 mini was then led into the current series. So you could easily, their current series is very contained. You don't need to read those in order to enjoy or feel a part of the current series, but if you want to see the true origins of the team, you're going to want to pick up those 2 minis as well, which are both traded. So just a heads up on that. I think the trade is 6 Degrees of Separation, I think is what it was called.
I think so.
I might be wrong on that. But, because I have the trade. I bought the trade, too. I still have the singles, and I have the trade.
Yeah, me too.
I love that book. He was talking about different rings. I honestly 100% agree that I think we're going to see... because you got to get off that planet somehow. So I think we are going to see different rings come into play. I think we're going to see Hal take out a different ring. I think we're going to see... Guy, I think we've got his different ring with the fact that he has the red in him. We're going to see the other Lanterns take on different rings because they have no other choice. And it would be interesting to see how that all plays out with them. And my question for the one is going to be what is going to happen to the one? The one out of the 4 that does not wind up with a ring.
With a ring, yeah. Who it's going to be and what's going to happen. And I tell you, you start thinking about with just him in that fight that he and Hal had, and brought up a really cool point about just on one hand you always look at Guy, you look at the bravado, you look at just the Guy Gardner attitude, but in a way look at all that he did for the Corps. And yes, he's been honored as an honor guard and he is respected among the Lanterns, but people like Superman and people like, Batman, they look at Hal as the Green Lantern. Or maybe they look as John as the Green Lantern. And they still look at Guy a little bit differently. Now, maybe not Superman, because Superman's cool with everybody. But there are the heroes who do look at Guy differently. But Guy is one of the guys who rebuilt the Green Lantern Corps. When Hal Jordan turned to the dark side, when Hal had his whole parallax moments, and when he flew into the sun, and when he wasn't around, Guy was the guy who was there for the Corps, for the universe, for the hero community. And I like the fact that there is that emotional reaction from him, and there is that, hey, I do want some of that recognition that I'm deserving.
One of the things that I like about Guy Gardner's history is that in spite of all this bravado and the macho behavior and the gruff behavior, there actually is a guy in there who is a hero and has a sense of a code to him, and he'll do these tough things like what he's doing, where he'll break the rules and break the laws and things like that because he believes it's for the right reasons. Sometimes he's misguided, and sometimes he's brash, and sometimes he's thick-headed and doesn't think first. But I think over time, talk about an evolution of a character, he is not the same man he was in JLI. He's not the same man he was the first time he wore the ring. And I love that evolution of the guy where I feel like he's more of an adult. He's more of an adult now. He really is. He's a lot more mature. I'm not talking about just an age. I mean, it's an experience and respect of others.
He is called Hawkman. gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Jim, this is actually an appropriate time to talk about Batman and Robin number 22, considering the discussion we had earlier about Zatanna. Because it's funny how sometimes when an arc comes to a close, and it's one of the reasons why we talk on the show a lot about how there's some stories like Grounded. Great example of a story where, how am I going to feel about it? I think I'm not going to really know that in Wonder Woman until the end. I want to see where that story's going. What is the closure going to be? What was, the overall point of the story? This arc for the White Knight, it was funny. I've been enjoying Batman and Robin, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say at any point in time I disliked it. It's been a great read. I'm a Batman junkie, so a Batman book, when I'm reading it, I'm on board, and I'm having a good old time. This arc, though, has been one of those that's had a really nice build. At the end here, I'm like, oof. I actually referenced the Comic Timing episode that's coming up at some point on their podcast. We already recorded it, but we actually rated our Batman books, and I rated mine. And Batman and Robin now is a big question mark for me where I would put it because of this issue. This was a fantastic issue of Batman and Robin. Really just developed for me how they're using the relationship between Damian and Dick. I loved the exploration of Damian's inner character. Is your behavior predestined? Is your behavior destined by genetics? And this is all coming out because of this White Knight villain who is hunting down people who could potentially not just themselves be bad seeds. They might live their entire life and be perfectly wonderful citizens. But maybe at some point in time in their genetic line, they could breed another family member who has those quirks of the Arkham inmate and could be a threat to society. So it's this genetic cleansing that this White Knight's justifying. And Damian having and Alfred coming back and giving the high five to Damian. There's so many good moments in this, where interpersonal moments that the villain brings out. And this is a great sign of a villain because it brings it out in the heroes where we get to know a little bit more about them and how they interact with each other, how they truly feel about each other. And for Damian, anytime we get to see his vulnerabilities, where he's being a little bit more human, is to me a good thing. And this issue did it in spades. This is by far, since the new creative teams have taken over, we've had different arcs with them now, one of my favorite issues of Batman and Robin.
Oh, big time. And one of the reasons I've listed this as my top, Batman and Robin title has been this interaction between Dick and Damian and Alfred and Damian. And he's just this wonderful character who, as I've said multiple times, and when he first came on, I really hated the little snot. And then as he started, he started growing on me, and I started getting used to him and started understanding and seeing his defensive mechanisms. And I love seeing these scenes, that everything you were talking about with the nature, it's, nature versus nurture. And just the way Damian's drawn in some of these scenarios, when they're in the cave and they're talking about it, you see him kind of perched on the railing, and he's kind of hunkered in and holding in. He's kind of like hugging himself in a way, and that's a very defensive position that traditionally people would get when they're feeling vulnerable and they don't want they have a hard time expressing their emotions. And even here, where Dick's saying, "Hey, you made your choice to help Damian, to make a difference, which is always harder," and he's giving him that great compliment, and Damian has to come back with a little humor to try to because he's not used to that positive reinforcement. Expecting a birthday gift from me this year or something. It's just that little, throw out that little bit of jab, that little bit of humor, make a little kind of joke and not remark on the serious nature of it as his defensive mechanism. As this is all this cool stuff is
dude,
going on.
Hold on. Wait, I'm 100%. I'm not knocking anything you're saying, but the build to the moment you're talking about showed so much more of his vulnerability because they're talking about this White Knight and Dick makes this comment, sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it? And Damian took that as a personal jab, when I don't know that Dick meant it that way. We got to see that there are some sensitive areas for Damian, which led to that whole discussion, which built to that. That was something that I really love, because I agree with everything you say, amen. Ditto. So this isn't a contradiction of you. It's more of a building on what you're saying I love the entire build to that moment, which added more to when he got the compliment and Damian realized, I kind of flew off the handle here. It's one of those moments where you fly off the handle because you assume something that somebody's thinking. Then you realize, wait a minute, they're thinking about me in a completely different way than I realize.
Yeah.
There's a respect level for me here that I don't get that led to that whole birthday present moment that you were talking about. I'm like, oh my gosh, what a brilliant piece of writing this was. So it was the whole build to everything you're saying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off at that point, but I was just like totally digging what you were saying. And to me, it was like, it wasn't just that moment. It was this really cool moment where we got to see Damian, like, he totally took what Dick Grayson, because am I right? Dick Grayson didn't mean it that way. Damian took it that way because of his own issues.
Right. Oh, 100% agreeing with you. And it's funny, I did skip over another funny line that had me chuckling when, Dick goes, didn't know you were so sensitive. Maybe I should see how sensitive your lower vertebrae are. Again, cool Damian moment, which leads to this great, emotional expression by, Dick saying, hey, how great he is and how good he's doing and how it is he's went down the harder road. He's taken, the harder path to, it would be easy for Damian just to be a killer and to sign up with his mother, but he's choosing to do right, and that's, it's the right choice is usually the hardest choice to make, and Damian's following that path. And I loved all this stuff just leading into that, and the cool thing about this issue, this wasn't just a huggy, feely kind of issue. They had some really great action moments going on, even right before this, when all of the people who were under the influence were getting ready to do that massive swan dive. You have Alfred back in the cave running, a subsonic frequency to knock them out. But the ones who already jumped, they got to save, as many as they could. And even Damian's like, we can't get them all. And Dick's like, we get who we can. We save who we can, and we make sure whoever did this pays for it. And I was like, yes.
I love seeing Arkham Asylum in the lights.
Yeah.
Because you don't see that. Arkham Asylum is a very dark place. And in all of its portrayals, different artists do different takes on Arkham Asylum. Even in your films and your video games and stuff like that, like the DC Universe Online game, you can go to Arkham Asylum. Arkham Asylum is a main fixture in the Batman Arkham Asylum game. So you get to see different variations on it, but it's always this dark, kind of gothic-looking place. And when you see it all lit up like this, it's just a completely different scenario, and I love the way that this all played out.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, came in, neutralized all the cops who were there with the boom, with the sticks and the light up, and, they're sitting there, and the cops are getting ready to panic, and and Gordon's like, no, keep your weapons holstered, because that's the last thing you want is guys who can't see too well or can't see at all, with their guns out, because they may react to a sound, and next thing you know, you got friendly fire, which isn't that friendly.
Well, and I love that too, and I love that during that moment, he heard the engine, and it gave him an opportunity to get some hope for himself in that scenario, digging in. There's no other engine that sounds like that, using the other senses, again, showing just how sharp-witted James Gordon is. I love seeing him in vulnerable situations where he reacts, one of the ones that stand out for me the most is from Killing Joke, where he was probably, you couldn't get more vulnerable than he was in Killing Joke, where he was saying, you've got to show him the right way, to Batman, show him that our system works. But seeing him here again, he's blinded, and he's trying to keep things under control. He's being a true leader. And that's one of the things that, to me, that's the strength of Jim Gordon. That's the strength of his experience. It doesn't matter that he's an old cop. It's that he is a good cop. And it's not about his morality. That's a factor, sure, but it's his experience and the fact that he's a great cop when it comes down there. And I like that. I like that portrayal of a civilian in comics. Seeing this one that we respect. To me, he's every bit as much of a superhero in my eyes as a cast member as Batman, as Superman, as Booster Gold, as any of these characters, as we see with Wonder Woman. Jim Gordon has that kind of iconic status for me, where I look at him as being somebody who is going to step up in any situation.
Oh, big time. And a city like Gotham, you need that. And it's we've always talked, whenever they do really cool Gordon representations, how you notice it and you love it and you're like, yeah, you need to have that kind of feeling. And it's one of the strengths of the writing team. They got Gordon in this as well.
When he's drowning all the villains, some of the funniest moments, everyone was Zaz. Nobody gets to kill my family but me. Your eyes are mesmerizing as your light. I would love to wear your face. That's Jane Doe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, Mad Hatter, drowning is not my forte. There were some really cool moments there. But the Joker, when he gets to him, he's like, I've taken out all of the potential genetic future of your bloodlines. Couldn't find one for the Joker.
He already cut them himself, and you do wonder, how did he cut them? Did he kill it off? Did he make it so they don't exist, or that he is such a enigma as to his true identity, there is no connection? Makes me wonder if we're going to see some more about the Joker family down the line.
Yeah, I don't know that. See, sometimes with the Joker, I think I like the idea that we don't know everything about the Joker. I like the ambiguity. I don't want to see the final permanent telling of the Joker's origin. I like that sometimes he has led to the misdirection where people don't entirely know everything that's going on. Like, it'd be funny to find that eventually his family's living somewhere and they're doing just fine.
They have no idea that the Joker is the Joker.
He sends them gifts.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with the truth of the matter is, if there was anybody still around, he at some point in time killed off anybody that could identify who he is in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I can't see him being the good uncle that gives gifts at Christmas time and that funny Uncle Joker. I can't see that happening.
But I think the mystery to him is part of the joke.
Yeah,
and it gives him power to be able to reinvent himself.
Well, I think he enjoys the fact that even he probably doesn't know this point in time what's the real story. There's been so many versions told, and there's been so many versions told by him that even he doesn't know the truth. And he thinks it's probably funny.
Yeah. Getting to actually see what the White Knight's backstory was and how it related to Dr. Phosphorus, I thought was very cool.
God. And I love the fact that it was his hand imprints on his father that kind of made those wings that gave him this whole wing motif and the whole everywhere he was going with the phosphorus being phosphorus. I was just like, wow, this is a great introductory and creation of a villain.
This led to another one of my favorite Damian moments because I liked seeing him fight Zaz. Can anybody add the marks on? That was kind of cool. But it was afterwards, you have to make this moral decision. This was something that it plays back into earlier in the issue where Damian, because of his actions, has earned the respect of Batman and Alfred. And in this moment, he's got to make a decision about saving the villains. And I'm thinking, and you know what? I have no doubt of what he's going to do, but I liked that moment because it was a very Damian moment. And I love that I have confidence in the kid now that in the end, he might not do it the way that we would expect a normal hero to traditionally do it, but he is going to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. It's going to be the Damian way. It's going to be probably a lot more brutal than any other hero you would expect. But in the end, he's going to make the moral choice. He's going to make the right choice. And it's not about killing people for him anymore. It's not about doing all that. He's a part of Team Batman, and he's buying into it. He chose to buy into it. He turned his back on everything else to head down this path, made that decision for himself, which makes him, to me, a character who I'm becoming very fond of, because he's giving all that training to be its brutal assassin and killer up to be something more. I think it's one of the reasons why I like Cassandra Cain so much, is, that she is one of the deadliest killers in the world, but when she was Batgirl, she chose to wear the colors of the Bat and to be a part of that system, to turn her back on David Cain. So it's something that I've always enjoyed about that character. We're seeing it on a very different level with Damian. And I'm loving seeing Damian turn his back on that type of lifestyle. And with Dick Grayson as the mentor, it's a relationship. If there was ever a reason, and if there's an end game down the road where Batman Incorporated was going to end, and we were going to go back to having one Batman, I am totally saying right now that the book I want to see is Nightwing and Robin.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And it's funny, that scene where Damian's just I'm thinking about it. I liked in each of the cells, you got Jane Doe and Calendar Man sitting there trying to hold their heads just above the water. Then you see the Joker cell. He's not only trying not to hold his head above, he's holding on to his chair, so he's sitting underneath the water holding his breath. I love seeing that.
And mainly because he thinks it's funny.
Yeah, it's again, it's little quirks and twerk and twist with that is the Joker. It's little attention to detail like that, little things like that in the background that really make me enjoy this book.
Batman versus the White Knight. The bit with the ears, and I had to go here with this. Batman's got this staff through him and all that, and he's still not giving up. And I love seeing that Dick Grayson has different gadgets than we see with Bruce. And that would be something where these two, we're going to see a different separation between the two of them. And let me say something about my comment about Nightwing and Robin before. I'm only saying if Batman Inc. were to end, right, I would want to see these two continue to be paired up because I like their relationship. I'm not saying I'm shooting for that because, I'll be honest with you, I am so adoring Dick Grayson Batman right now that they can keep going on into this. Let's make this stick. I'm cool with this.
Oh, definitely.
It's working for me.
100% agree with you. And it's funny because seeing just those ears fly out, and it reminded me so much of, with the movie when he shoots out from the arms, and then even again when we saw Owlman in Outsiders, when he shoots off his cowl. These are just a natural weapon that I'm surprised we haven't seen it before in a Batman series, that I was like, that's kind of neat. That's a little unexpected surprise for somebody.
We've seen him use the ears for different things. I don't remember ever being used in this capacity. And that's something that I really dug. It was something just new. And I thought it was handled in a way that was uniquely Dick Grayson. And the dialogue, to me it led to this great dialogue moment. So, did you save those rats from drowning? Unfortunately, yes. Are those your cowl ears sticking in his head? Yep. You're meaner than I thought. I like it. Just a great banter between the two of them. You wouldn't get necessarily with Bruce and Damian. I think you could, but I don't think it would work as well as it would with Dick Grayson. There's something about this relationship here that these are partners now, and I'm very invested in their partnership. Mm-hmm. And I like that we're getting a book in Detective Comics where we're getting solo Dick Grayson stories, solo-ish. We'll see these characters pop into there in ways that are appropriate, but it's a different style and tone. But then we get this book where it's a full-on team-up book, and we're seeing that relationship build. It's something different and unique, and I like that my feelings on which is my favorite Bat book of the month is going to be very blurry. It's going to be this book, it's going to be this book, and then this book's going to surprise me and do that. That's a sign of great talents being assigned to these books, where you feel this way. I'm going to be very wishy-washy on that because I'm enjoying them so much. And I love that. I don't want Bat books where I'm like sitting here going, I'm just picking it up because I'm a Batman fan. There is nothing Batman that I'm picking up right now that I'm just picking up because I'm a Batman fan. I'm picking them up because these stories are knocking my socks off. And I love that with the fact that there's so many great things going on at DC right now where there's characters like Green Lantern, that's got the War of the Green Lanterns, and you got these big events in Superman and Wonder Woman. But I love, as a Batman fan, this is my line. This is what's kept me in comics all these years, Batman and the Bat books. And I love that right now I'm like, these are some of the finest books being published. And I'm talking about the whole, not just Batman, Birds, Red Robin, Batgirl. These are just, I'm sad that we're losing Azrael. Just some great books that are being published right now in the Bat line. And it's just a great time to be a Bat fan because of these type of moments.
Amen. This is a fun book, and it's and it's funny when you say a fun book, sometimes people will think it's not a serious book, but it is. This is an enjoyable experience for me because of the serious stuff they cover, because of the little quirks and the little, funny jabs and commentary that we get between the two of them. Dick Grayson and Robin was always the one-liners. Well, now we have Damian, who's starting to do his own little comical style to it.
You know what? I'm glad you touched on that because somewhere along the line, fun became a diminishing word, and we've talked about this on the show before. I so disagree with that because You can have your deep, serious story where it's serious all the way through, and it's very dark and very gritty and all that, and it makes your mind go in all kinds of places and all that. But you should have fun reading that. And to give a book the compliment that it was fun to read, you should always enjoy the experience. If you're trudging through it and it's a chore, there's something wrong. So at its basic core, and this is true of any entertainment medium, not just comics, it should be enjoyable. It should be fun. I'm not saying that the story has to make you smile. You can be at the end angry afterwards because it's one of those deep stories where it's a psychological thriller and you're just kind of in that emotional mood at that moment. But at the end, the result should have been, wow, I really had fun reading that. I want to come back and see more of where this story is going. It doesn't have to have a humorous bone in it, but yet you should have that enjoyment to it. And fun is a word that I don't know why it became a diminishing. Do you feel like that? Because I do. I feel like sometimes when you say that, you should come back and say, well, maybe I'm diminishing this book because I'm making it seem like it's a funny book or something like that. No, fun is a good thing. That's something you should compliment something like this with.
Yeah, I do feel sometimes when I say something's fun, people will think it in a negative term, which does annoy me because for me, it's fun. My reading should be fun. And it's when I get like that serious, really gripping stuff that just wrenches at the heart, that wouldn't be an exactly appropriate time to have a little joke or to say it's fun. I would never say that Cry for Justice was a fun book because of just what happened in there and the tragedy, behind Roy's daughter and just everyone who died and all this just really gut-wrenching stuff that happened. But it was a good book and it was an enjoyable book. And when I'm, it's tough to say that fun when I'm throwing this on this Batman and Robin. There's still serious moments in there. There's some really cool stuff going on. This, White Knight, who's now White Angel, was a kid when all this terrible stuff happened to him. You think about Batman. Batman was a kid when he became, Batman. Dick, when his parents died, he was a little kid. Damian, it's all these heroes had these commonalities of really bad childhood experiences. Whereas Bruce and all the Bat family went one way, White Knight went a completely different way, but still has that same kind of mindset where in his head he's thinking, I'm doing the right thing. So it's one of those things where can you say that a traumatic childhood experience is fun? Well, in this book, it was. This was a fun story. This was a really cool, gripping story. This was a serious story, but I had fun reading it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
With your Cry for Justice analogy, I'm kind of going back. There's dark stories like that where, and I honestly, I had fun reading Cry for Justice when it was coming out. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it was a fun story. There's a difference. Right. There's a distinction there. But I think anytime you pick up a comic book, if you're not having fun reading it, especially if you're not having fun reading it for multiple issues, you need to say to yourself, maybe I need to switch which book I'm reading.
Yeah, and there's so many out there that, for me are just firing on all cylinders that, find what you're missing in your story and look for it in somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Like, this is a fun story, exploring some very deep and serious tones that were not so fun, in the sense that they weren't meant to be a fun tone. But I had fun reading this, and the artwork. Oh my gosh, it was gorgeous! Just the Batmobile, the technical gadgets, and all that stuff. It's just wow. I love the tree at the end, where it's a little bonsai tree that he hangs Batman and Robin on there, which means we're going to see our little White Knight again.
Yeah. And he's coming back again, and again, it's a new addition to Batman's Rogues Gallery, and it'd be kind of curious for me to see Bruce go up against this guy, and will this guy know the difference when he's up against Bruce as compared to Dick?
Or will we as the readers see the difference?
Yeah.
Jim, I want to talk about a show favorite. I know you do too, Birds of Prey number 11. We're both obviously huge fans of Secret Six and Birds of Prey. And the crossover issues in the past where we've gotten to see Catman with Huntress. The key to this issue for me, and this is something where, why do we bring these two characters back together again? Well, it shows growth. Not just growth in Catman. It showed intense growth in Huntress. We've seen in both books a lot of development. I don't know if growth in Catman. I think we've seen Catman's headed to some very dark places, and Huntress is going to have to deal with that Catman because we've seen him. He was more of the skirting the lines of being a hero in Secret Six, and we've seen because of circumstances and what happened to his kid and his childhood traumas and how all that kind of culminated and came together. Thomas has gone into a horribly dark place. So now enter Huntress, who we've seen in issues of Birds coming all the way up to this point of issue 11, where Huntress now has evolved, gone to the next level. She's stood toe-to-toe with Lady Shiva and earned respect. We've seen this. This is a hero who is coming to the level where Black Canary is, for example. And to see these two come together now, can you come back together and ignore the changes that have happened? Can you recapture a magic when you are now the opposites attract, but what happens when you're even more opposite than you were before? And I think that's what we're seeing here in this issue, and I love this exploration. First of all, I want to compliment the cover. What a gorgeous... it's Stanley, is it Art Germ Lau? Is that right? And I'm probably butchering the name, but has been doing the covers. LAU, is that Lau? Am I saying that right? I believe so. All right, if I'm butchering that, I apologize because the covers have been breathtaking. Another great example of a cover I just want as a poster. Yes. As a matter of fact, one of the great things I like to do at the Source blog, when they do these, Windows 7, I told you before, allows you to do those cover rotations and all that. I'll go to the Source blog when they do these previews, and you'll right-click on the image, and you've got it on your computer then. It's a great way to collect your favorite comic covers and display them. And it's a cool way to kind of celebrate, your comic reading as you're going along. And it adds, kind of a personalized desktop theme where you're celebrating some of your favorite characters. So it's kind of a cool thing that the Source does in those preview images. It gives you the opportunity to have that as your background. And this is one of them that's in the rotation. So it's just a cool issue. The internal artwork, though, it's Perez. Really did a fantastic job on this one.
Yeah, and Nia Rufino for colors again. Yeah, this is a beautiful book, and it's, again, enjoyable story, but also you can't just have a cool story. You have to have that artwork that fits and blends in. And this goes from having some really cool personal, moments between the two of them, but you got some great action scenes. It opens with this really cool chase scene of Huntress going after this guy who, was involved in this robbery. And it's Huntress scrambling through the streets of Gotham, hunting down this guy. And panel, boom, boom, boom. Nice flow through all the pages, and it was something I was really enjoying, the action.
Dialogue also shedding personality. Just this great moment of, of course there was a jewel heist. It's Gotham, and it's a Thursday. I love those, because that's her. Huntress has this wit about her. And there's something about writers. I love writers who get the characters' dialogue. Think about on this episode how many times we referred to dialogue sequences that stood out for us, for characters that showed some strong character development. Let us get to know the characters. We were just talking about Batman and Robin with the great development of Damian in that issue. This is another great example of Huntress. I know who she is. I know how she's going to talk. I know how an actress who's going to play Huntress from this should be talking, and what her wit should be like. And this, if they ever put her on the screen, this should be the template. I mean, they've done it before. I know with birds and stuff like that, they've had the birds show. But I'm saying if they do, they Smallville-ize or put her, I mean, I don't think we're going to see her in Smallville this season. But if we ever see her on a television series again or in a film, you've got to use this dialogue. I mean, oh my God. Great stuff.
Yeah, just inner dialogue as she's chasing down this art, this great ancient relic thing that exhibit couldn't be had in Gotham because they couldn't get an insurance company who would cover it. I think that is in itself is a nice statement as to what Gotham's like. But then some idiot routes it, the transit right through the most dangerous part of Gotham. Hello, of course it's going to get robbed. I love just seeing, again, Gotham in itself is a part of the story. It is a character in the best of any of the Bat family related, any of the Gotham stories. This environment that is Gotham City has to be a factor in it, and you're seeing that directly in the story and actually how she's moving through the different stuff as she's hunting this guy down.
Now, here's a question I've got for you. When Blake shows up, and she goes, wait, he's here, how did I not hear him? Did she think it was Blake?
I think so. I think she was recognized who he was when he was there, when he got there, and that's what kind of shocked her that she didn't notice him before that.
So maybe showing how he's grown, or maybe how, he's darker now or something like that, or I don't know. Part of me at first thought, I'm like, did she think it was Batman and then was surprised to find that it was Blake? Or did she think it was Blake all along? And I think that might have been me overthinking it.
I think she recognized that it was Blake, but didn't see him beforehand, didn't feel him, sense him, smell him, or whatnot. This again shows that Blake is a little bit different, in how his presence is, and he's able to sneak up on Huntress. And I think that's the thing that kind of threw her off when he was there. And then she sees him a little bit rougher than what he normally was in the past, and she's like, "Whoa, something's not right here." She's like, "Wow, this doesn't sound like the Catman I know." And she's really just, seeing kind of Catman on the edge.
And I like that she cares about that. Because I think this is a Huntress now. Her self-respect has risen from where it was earlier on. And I think her understanding of it has gone down. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, Catman on the ledge. No pun intended.
I like Barbara Gordon's Batman pajamas.
Yes.
That was a cool little touch.
Well, little stuff throughout this issue, had me chuckling. Just, even, earlier when she's talking about hunting this guy down, she's like, "I really don't care about the bank robberies or that. That's Oracle's deal." But this guy, they shot a guard and they took a hostage. That means they get hunted. And I love seeing that, just that mindset of her. And then we get to Oracle with the Batman pajamas, including it looks like bunny slippers, that she's wearing, or they're maybe footy pajamas, I'm not sure, but they are like fuzzy pink bunny slippers.
They aren't footy pajamas. They are fuzzy. They are fuzzy pink bunny slippers.
Yes. I think is cool.
Those are pink, aren't they? Yeah.
It looks like to me.
Oh, that's really funny. I don't see the bunny ears, though.
No, and I'm going by bunny just because of the face. That looks like a rabbit face to me.
That's really funny. Yeah, it does look like a rabbit face. You're right. Those are cool. Those aren't footies, though, because if they were footies, they'd be the same color.
True.
That was cool. I like that whole bit. Now, what's interesting to me, Huntress is always the one that has, throughout her career, skirted the violent edge. I think it's something she connected with Blake on in their early meetings. That they had a similar kind of fight style. They had a similar, they were more fight clubby than finesse, if that makes sense. But again, this is somebody who's evolved in Huntress. We've seen her grow. I still see her as out of the birds. She's going to be the one that's going to throw down with you and doing all that. I don't think, I don't think we've lost that edge and sharpness to her, but I think she's more refined now. She's more experienced. She's more of a veteran. And she picks her spots and recognizes now that I don't think she's going to go as unnecessarily far as she would have in the past. Do you agree with me on that end?
Oh, definitely. I think, she's, I don't want to say softened because she's still tough and she still kicks butt, but she's not out for blood anymore. Yeah, she hunts them down. Yeah, she's going to make it hurt, but there is that line, and she's more toed in the line of the Bat family, the Bat code. And the Oracle code as well, because Oracle believes in the Bat code, where you don't cross that line.
Softened is the word. I don't see her as softened either. I'm glad you said that, because you picked right up on where I was trying to go with that. Thank you. Because I was trying to think of the way to say it, because I didn't want to, diminish her. Because I'm like, no, there's an edge to her that you're going to see in her that's different than, because she's that knuckle down kind of, and she's definitely still carrying the bow and everything. So we haven't lost her Huntress edge. I like the line that they skirted with her, because they haven't taken any of that away. They haven't softened her, but yet I feel like she's grown. There's more experience to her. She's more of a team player. She's got the family aspect of it is in there. Yet, if somebody hurts one of the girls, run. Yeah,
well, run. But there's no place you'll be able to hide from her.
Right.
She will hunt you down, and I love that about her. That it's not just about. Maybe you'll give yourself a day or a month reprieve, but that beating's coming, and it's going to be something fierce.
The kiss between the two when she slaps him. Again, we see that her discomfort with him. I love the intuitive nature of her. Because of who she is and the way she is as a combatant, she would recognize the difference in him immediately. And she did. The way that he carries himself, the tone. It just shows that when she falls for something and she, whether crushing on it, whatever, and that type of thing, she really gets to know the person in question. And and noticing not only what's new and different, but also what's missing from him. And that would be part of the charm that brought her with him to begin with. Because I do think that she's lost that, there was a nobility to Catman that I think is absent now. Or, I don't know if it's completely absent, but you got to take a machete to dig through and find it. Do you think it's gone, or do you think it's still there?
I don't know. With him, I don't know if we'll ever get back the guy we know and the character we know, and whether there will be that moment. Part of me thinks it's gone for good. Because it's the rule where when you cross a certain line, can you ever cross it back? And he's crossed that line, dude. He not only viciously killed people, he tortured them in the process of killing them. So that's a tough... that's going to be a tough one for him to make the fight back.
Now, I liked the bit where Oracle was asking her if she needs backup. And Huntress said, I've got this one. And this leads to a debate between Dinah Lance and Oracle and having that talk. I loved those moments because we get to see, again, Team Birds is recognizing that Huntress knows what she's doing. Yet they would be crazy not to be questioning the whole situation.
Well, you need to have that moment where you're wondering, is she too close to the thing? Is her emotions getting in the way of her logic or her judgment on this matter? And I like the fact that Dinah's like, hey, you're the one who's always talking about rehabbing lost souls. Let the woman cut loose. Maybe something good will happen here. And God knows she's earned that. And I love the fact that it's just that we got to hold out the hope. We got to keep, obviously keep an eye on the situation because you care about somebody. But there's got to be that hope. The hero has to have that feeling that even this person can be redeemed, and she could be the one to do it. And I like that.
When Catman punches the pregnant woman when they go bursting into that sequence of events. Again, this is what I mean where we're seeing a Huntress that's more refined. She was always the one where if you saw a Huntress story where she was part of a team, she always went that little bit farther than everybody else. It took that little extra step more than anybody else. To see her now more focused on, hey, wait, this guy, hey, I go far. This guy's off his rocker.
I shouldn't laugh at him punching a pregnant woman, and I'm not laughing at the fact that he's hitting the pregnant woman. It's more of just everybody's reaction to it.
Oh yeah,
she attacks. He punched her. He didn't even notice she was pregnant because when she calls it on it, he's like, "Hey, what? She was attacking me. Are you blind or stupid? She's pregnant." And he's at that just as he's like, that's when the other dude starts shooting at him, and he unleashes on that guy. It was like really cool, kind of just that moment you're talking about where Huntress was always the one that had to be, kind of reined in, kind of hold back a little bit. And now she's the calm one of the two. Yeah. She's the good cop of the good cop, bad cop routine. And I think that is kind of just something that has me chuckling.
Well, and it was interesting, too, when she's calling Blake on it. Blake's, coming back with, she was attacking me. Are you blind? This woman's pregnant. And he doesn't have a response to that. And it really is a guy who is, talk about coming back for a date, and the dates, he's just making the date go horribly wrong, Wait, this would be a guy, we have friends like this. Wait, not only that, we've been those friends. Not saying that we punched out pregnant women, but I mean, right. Where you have that date that's gone wrong and we've both been there. Every guy, and I think every girl's been there, where you just know the date went wrong because you did everything wrong along the way. And that's what I love about this. Yeah. Art imitates life. Yes, it's an extreme situation, and we haven't been in these, but we can relate to it because we've been there. I'm like, there were points in time when I did my reread of this. First time through, I was totally with Huntress. And I was following her side because I'm like, Huntress is just one of my favorite characters. So I love following Huntress. But, it's funny how when you do a reread through, you tend to follow more the perspective of a different character, and it takes your journey a different way. I'm like sitting here, I'm like, oh, Blake, you're telling me this story right now, and I'm the friend who's telling you every moment where you goofed. Yeah. Horribly goofed. And irreparably goofed, because I don't know that, I don't see these two ever having a good date again after this, or it's going to take a lot.
Yeah, I don't see that. I think this is the last date between the two of them, which in a way kind of stinks because I'd like to see Huntress have some happiness, but in the end, I think she could have worked through and gotten over the fact that he punched the pregnant woman. I think she could have worked through it just as the heat of passion, the moment of the attack, just that whole animal, style of nature that is Catman. But just, again, he just takes it to a whole nother level when he's interrogating, when he's dealing with these criminals, when he is just, there. He's a different man than what he was. He's a darker man. He is a more, lost soul than he ever was.
It's interesting in this moment where I love this moment between the two where she's patching him up and talks about how he was fat. And he, very honest with her, says, I used to be messed up. Then I wasn't so much. Now God only knows. And it's interesting how he's admitting his own vulnerability right here, which is very much where he's at in 6. And that's what I love about this writer having the opportunity to put these two characters together, because it shows his respect for her. I really liked that. So I guess I'm hoping we get to see them together again at some point after some more growth for Blake, where maybe we see him come full circle, or if he goes further down the dark path, seeing them encounter each other again, because I'm enjoying the journey between the two of them. So I guess I'm going to I want to see them again. I do want to see. I'm with you. I want to see it again, because maybe it is as completely as foes next time. Or if Blake's in a different spot, maybe there is, because she gives him that cross, and I loved that moment where she hands this to him, because I took that as a symbol of her growth as well. Like, this has protected me. This gave me a direction. You need to find one. You need to choose a side in those moments. And I thought the symbolism of giving him the cross, it was something to her that I thought gave her a direction, that now she's saying, I've got my direction. I know where I'm at. I know what side I'm on. I know where I should be going. Whereas before I didn't. Should I be alone, or should I be a part of a team? Am I, pro this side? Am I pro that side? Is it about vengeance? Is it about justice? Who am I in this whole thing? I found that person. So in some ways, she's relating to what he's going through. Again, then Thomas goes back to this was a great chance for Thomas to turn the date around. He just doesn't.
It was that moment, where she's telling him, you got to pick a side. You got to, right now we're both in that big gray area in the middle. And it's, again, a connection to her religion, to her faith. And you talk about just him giving the cross, but even that is just something even, more personal. That is, her cross. And I'm assuming that's the same one she's had, ever since, from the beginning. So there's that really close personal connection that, she had where she originally got that. And passing that on to somebody is also another huge moment. There's, my mom still has, my grandmother's cross. And it's, something that, when mom passes on, it'll get passed on the family. And then on to the next and the next. And it's something that will always remain in the family and get passed on from one generation to the next.
But it was something, it showed to me her growth in a big way. That she was able to, it was kind of closing a door on a chapter for her and opening herself up to her new life. A life that she's been in for quite some time, but her realizing, because that was one of the things when they came back together, we talked about, we enjoyed so much when they came back, them realizing that they meant something to each other. And some of the things that were unspoken by Huntress in those moments, but then they came back and had that wonderful moment. That was stuff in the beginning of this relaunch series I so adored. And seeing her here now has showed, again, why does this series need to be here? Because there is so much more growth for these characters. There's so much more ground to cover with Huntress, with where she's at right now. But I love seeing that progression with her. One of my favorite characters, and I'm loving seeing this with her.
Yeah. As they get into the, they're standing outside where the hostage is being held. I love that she had that moment with him where she's like, I gotta know, tell me the truth. Do you care about this woman at all? Is there any reason why you're here? And we see Thomas say, do I care about, this woman who's a hostage only because she had the courage to stand up and say, take me? Yes, I do. Surprisingly, maybe, but I do. And I loved seeing that moment again, just, as, part of Thomas, part of who he is. And that's, to me, I completely believe that statement. And I loved seeing that.
It's funny when I'm watching these two on this date. I'm like sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm so trying to get my wife to go on to one of these kind of dates. But it's like, you take her up to a rooftop and she wants like, a table and candles and dinner and stuff like that. I want to fight crime.
Just stop, think for a second there what you just asked for. Because how many times in this date has Huntress punched and hit Catman? And how many times has Catman gotten shot during this date? So
Dude,
do you really
the right kind of
Catman?
Wait, if I can get that Hawkman costume, you know how expensive it is. Maybe.
Oh, okay, so you want to go with the Hawkman, Hawk Girl motif.
Sure.
Yeah, that works well for them on their dates.
That's a good point, too, yeah.
If you're going to go anything, dude, go Superman Lois Lane.
I don't want to. See, I don't want. I would look terrible in that
really.
outfit. I would look horrible in the Superman outfit.
Yeah,
I could pull off Hawkman. You know why? Because the big headdress it covers up my face.
Well, you can go with the cape and cowl, and she can go Catwoman.
That's a good point too. Well, does she have to be? Could it be a Hawkman Black Canary team up?
I don't know. If it's going to be Hawkman, there's only one person you can really team up with Hawkman.
For a date, yeah,
yeah.
Because it's the date. It's the date motif. You're right. Because I could team him up with because he has a history with Black Canary as well because of JSA and all that stuff and JLA. So they would team up and fight together. I could see that happening. I don't know. Boy, I got to really think through this plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Superman outfit wouldn't work for me.
Okay.
Maybe the Batman Catwoman thing I could do though.
Yeah, that could probably.
Actually, you know what? My wife has the hair for the Huntress outfit.
Yeah.
Except Batman Huntress doesn't work either.
Yeah, well, if you're going Huntress, it's Catman, so... Sorry, pal.
Well, I
for some pain.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I would dress up as... Again, I've got the mask. I need the mask. We're good from there. My wife will look good in the outfit, and I'm going to look like a mess. So if it is, I need a mask. I'll do the cat. I like the Catman suit. I'm not anti-doing Catman. Oh, you're right. I'm going to get punched a bunch, though. Maybe if I wear the Catman outfit and let her punch me, I can get the Hawkman suit.
Ooh, that'd work.
Oh, this is funny. I like this. Now, she's got the weapon right behind him, and she has to make that decision. Do I need to pull the trigger on him? Mm-hmm. That's how far gone this relationship is. To be in that position where she's realizing I may have to take him down here if things go the wrong way. And she's got to know she's only got one shot, but he knows it too. Yeah. I love that, the visual of that, the art piece. He knows that she was at that point with him. And he knows that she was realizing she might have to genuinely do it, which means he knows the trust is gone. At least the unconditional trust. I don't know that she would have done this in their previous meetings.
No, she definitely wouldn't have. And that was the interesting thing about this whole thing play out, where we see her pick up on the little clues that he called Ricky Richard. He knew that it was who the hostage was, because he didn't say, I think that's her. He said, that's her. And she was initially scared when she saw him because she recognized his green eyes. I love seeing the fact that she picked up on these little clues. She knew Catman was involved in this whole process from the beginning. And I thought that was just a cool confrontation and a great way she kind of handled it, even just having him go to the hostage. That way she would get the drop on him. I think that's that whole idea why she said she was going to take down the big dude with the sword. She wanted to be in the position to be able to have the drop on Catman, be able to come from his blind side. And I thought that, for me, was a cool Huntress moment.
The moment where he was looking at her and saying, help me. She realized that he betrayed her. He was lying about everything. And they had that moment together where she's like, I want you to be a decent man. She really did fall for him.
Yeah.
And the betrayal there is huge. She thought he was one kind of man. The charm, the dates that they had. And she was right. I've got to say, in those earlier dates between the two of them, the person she was with and what she was seeing from him was true. Where he's at now is because of circumstance. It's taken him there. He's making excuses, yes, because he needs to man up. But you can't argue that those traumas would do this to this man and shows how broken he is. This is great writing because I think it's very human. Mm-hmm. This is exactly where he is right now. How do you repair that? You lied to me. help yourself. And he didn't just make a small fib. That was a huge situation. He had multiple opportunities to fix this. And that's why I was saying at the end of the date, I'm like, wow. I'm like, we so would be giving him a talking to. I would love to be there with Deadshot. Dude, let me tell you where you went wrong. And we're going to need a list. Huh?
I'd be a little nervous to tell him where he went wrong because I don't know how he'd react to it. Because on one hand, part of this whole thing was a setup on his part to get her to completely fall out of love with him. He wanted to make sure that she would have a clean break and there would be no hesitation on her part and no holding on. So by that action, there is some honor and integrity to what he's doing.
Yeah.
Granted, he did the wrong thing, but he intentionally did the wrong thing because he knew this woman would hold on to it, and her life would be better without something that's kind of messy as he is. So in a way, there is some honor to what he did, and I like the fact that we have that little bit of ambiguity as to. Is he good? Is he bad? Has he gone too far?
There is a nobility to that.
Yeah.
It's funny, though. I still think he made the wrong choice.
Oh, big time.
Because I think she could have truly helped him.
Yeah.
I don't think he, by the nature that he's doing this, I don't think he's as far gone as he is. And I think that's where I was saying, as friends, I don't think we'd be doing what Deadshot is. I think, and when I was saying I want to hear what Deadshot's going to say to him, I meant I want to hear more needling. Because that's going to happen with Deadshot. He can't help it. I love the moment between the two of them, though, where when we learned that bit at the end, the twist, that Blake is doing this to put her off, it makes me wonder if we won't see them at some point in time reconnect.
It gives you the potential that it's there. But it's funny because I understand why he did it, and as I said, there's a nobility to it, but I do disagree with it but for him to cross back over, for him to fight back, he had to have from the beginning walked away from the six. He would have to completely turn his back on that life and probably even help take down the six, which is a tough thing to say considering how much I love him in Secret Six. But there is a price of redemption, and part of that price is he's got to take down what was. He's got to directly fight and confront what was the dark side of him. And unfortunately, that's that group of people. So it's kind of curious.
Is it? Because they even were commenting, like, Deadshot was trying to protect him from heading down that path. So I don't know that I can totally blame that on the six. Remember, it was this dark circumstances with the kidnapping of his son and all that is really what led him down that path. I don't think it was the six.
True. Yeah.
I'm defending a villain group. I know what I'm saying, but I'm saying
it's tough to defend it. And I agree with you. They were when the Cats in the Cradle storyline first got started. Mm-hmm. They were trying to make sure he didn't go down that line. He didn't cross the path, and he did. And unfortunately, they weren't able to stop him. They weren't able to prevent it from happening. So yes, there is nobility in that villains as well. But in the end, my opinion, if he were to try to cross back over, he would have to do that. He would have to take down the six as
to show her that he's on. It would be a first step. I don't think that would be enough. I honestly don't think that would be enough. But touching on what you're saying, like, I guess the point where I was having contention with you was saying that it was the six's fault. It was the group's fault that he's on that path. I disagree with that. I think circumstances are the reason why. And Blake's own choices in how to handle those circumstances put him in this place. To blame it on the six would be a lack of him taking responsibility because they didn't, and they tried to prevent this.
Yeah, I agree.
And Scandal would agree with our discussion right here that he's making a mistake.
Yeah, and I agree with you that it's not the six's fault, but the six would be a representative of his. If he were to try to cross back over, the six is a representative of that dark life. He would have to take them down to show her, to show himself, to show just the general world that he is on the right side. He couldn't ignore his old friends and say, well, I'll take down everyone but them. No, he would have to take them down. And that's more what I mean by him. He has to take down the six. Not because they caused the problem, but that is kind of a that's a representation of his dark life. And he has to confront that representation, and he has to take it down.
You know, it's funny, looking at these panels, the three panels right here where he's talking directly, or actually four, where he's talking directly to Deadshot. I don't, like, at that moment, I feel the discomfort with Deadshot in what Blake has become. He does not like Blake being in this place. I think he liked who Blake was. And I loved the idea that he was protecting him. He wanted to protect him from that. That was something that I just really enjoyed, because it shows, you talk about nobility. I think it surprises Deadshot even. Well, we got to see him with his family, though, and he has, some nobility there, too. Even though they're villains and they're horrible people who've done these horrible things, there is some sense of honor to them. Honor amongst thieves, so to speak. It's interesting. And I like the complexities of them. I like that when I'm watching this whole thing going around, I'm looking at Blake the same way that I would you, or you would look at me if we were in these situations. Not that we'd be in this, but I mean, we've had experiences where we've had to say, "Oh, dude, you screwed up so bad." And that's what Blake's going through with Deadshot at the end. And I would love to see the whole six weighing in on this, because Deadshot's doing the one thing that I think we all would do as friends: try to diminish the other person to try and make the one feel better. Saying that there's billions of girls out there, and Blake's 100% correct. I think anybody feels that way. When you've connected with somebody, there is not going to be anybody else like them. You might be able to have new relationships and be able to build something just as strong with somebody else, but it's still not going to be that person. Just like that new person, if something goes wrong with them, nobody's going to be able to replace them. Each person's got their unique thing that they brought to the table for you. And I love that about them. I love this explanation at the end. It was a great issue because I'm still thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And I still, the jury's still out as far as, did Blake do the right thing or not? Because I like the nobility of it, where he's sitting there saying, I got to let her go. And if I don't, we're still going to have this kind of thing between us. And is it right to do this with her? Wow.
Yeah.
And it adds a whole new layer to everything that he did along the way that he let her go at the end. Wow. But what happens when they have that confrontation and they've got to face each other? He's going to protect her, right? If he needs to?
I got to believe he would. And I gotta believe if there's ever a time when it's the six versus the birds, that Blake will do something to help her, or he'll minimize the damage, or he'll maybe get the team out of there, or do something like that. I can't see him going full on, all out, 100%, against Huntress.
There's the option to try and hide it too, though.
Yeah.
What a great book.
Yeah.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro-claw for carving through metal doors.
Both of these interviews with Paul Storrie, I wish I had been there to be a part of. I'm a huge pulp fan. Besides the fact that I love DC's first wave titles, I've always loved the pulp films. I've loved that whole concept of serialized fiction and how that all works out. I'm also a big fan of books like Athena Voltaire, which is published by Steve Ryan. And so I'm really excited to hear the Sheena books coming out, because especially with First Wave being canceled, I'm going to be looking for that fix. So Sheena is going to be coming at a great time at the end of summer, where there'll be an opportunity to pick up that book. So please, I encourage you to listen to this interview and see why you should be picking up Sheena 2 when it's released.
As soon as we got done with the first interview, you started telling me you're working on a couple other projects, and I'd love to hear about them.
Well, it's funny because I was talking about how I like to do strong female characters and kind of giving them their due. And I'm also starting just now with artist Jake Miner a relaunch of Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, who was actually the original comic book comic book heroine. She appeared in comics before Wonder Woman, before the Black Cat from Harvey. She was actually the very first heroine to star in her own comic. So it's really cool to go back and work on that.
I think I've read a couple of her stories, but I'm not 100% certain on who the character is.
Well, originally Sheena was a girl whose father was an explorer. And he was in Africa and died, and the tribal shaman raised her. And so she was, in certain ways, like a female Tarzan. But she was raised to be strong and fast and self-reliant. sort of became the protector of the tribe that she lived with. What we've done now, I'm working with screenwriter Steven D'Souza, who wrote Die Hard, and if you check out IMDb, it's just this huge list of stuff that I can't even hold it all in my head. And he kind of reconceptualized Sheena as growing up in the South American jungles, kind of given a little different flavor from Tarzan and Africa. There's a lot of interesting mythology to deal with in South America. Animals are different, and it gives it a nice different flavor. And now she's the granddaughter of a industrialist whose parents died in a plane crash, and she was raised in the jungle. She survived. She was raised in the jungle, and now she has become Sheena is actually a title that they gave her, Sheena Mariana, which is the guardian of the jungles.
Oh, cool.
And she fights against environmental depredation, people exploiting both land resources and the native peoples, but it's also a chance to do a really just kick-butt modern pulp.
I'm loving it as you're talking about. This sounds neat because you got a nice couple combinations of stuff with environmental consciousness.
Yes.
You got a lot of, I'm assuming you're going to get some corrupt politician.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's set in the fictional South American country of Valverde. The El Presidente for life, who is almost never seen, but his wife kind of acts in his place, and she's a real piece of work. Plus, there's her grandfather, who is actually an industrialist who works against the environment, who she doesn't meet until she's an adult.
Oh, okay.
And so she actually kind of lives two lives as this lost child who is reintroduced to her family, and then she also is slipping away to act as Sheena, the protector of the jungle. So she actually gets information and things about her grandfather's company or about the politicians and whatever that he's involved with that she can then use to make sure that, they can't do the worst to the land and to the people. Yeah, there's a little political intrigue, there's a little romance.
Well, you can kind of need to have a little bit of everything. Life is about the full emotional spectrum.
Right.
So when you're going to do a nice, story, you got to include that in there. And
Yeah.
I love seeing that because that gives it more of a realistic feel to the tales we're reading.
Well, and it also gives you a chance to introduce internal conflicts as well as, it's not just beat up the bad guy. It's she has this grandfather that she never knew, and of course there's all sorts of emotions there, yet he's not a good guy. Maybe not to the same extent, but we've all got sometimes family that we're, have kind of a love-hate relationship with, where they've done things or say things or whatever that we're not necessarily comfortable with, or they're almost everybody has sort of the black sheep branch of the family or whatever, and those kind of emotional issues are things that people can really grab onto, and it really gives the characters depth, keeps the situation from just being punch the bad guy of the week kind of thing, which I'm not. I mean, I love a good action scene, but I don't want to just do somebody came down from America and wants to steal diamonds. That's a start, but it's not a story.
It's you want to keep the entertainment. You want to throw little swerves and whatnot. So,
Steven D'Souza has come up with these kind of cool elements of South American mythology that some of them are accurate, some of them are kind of just made up so they feel right. There's interesting dimensions of kind of the near supernatural or the cryptozoic, the unknown monsters or unknown species kind of mixed in there. So, yeah, there's just it's such a rich tapestry to play in, and there's so much history of this character. And even if people sort of don't know, if you say Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, people are like, oh yeah. I don't necessarily know.
You've seen a story, you've heard one, you've maybe seen a movie poster, or you got an understanding.
She's the iconic jungle girl in the leopard print swimsuit kind of thing, and it's she's beautiful, and that's great, but she's also powerful. She's strong in both mentally and or emotionally and physically, and
confidence and presence is also a part of beauty. And you see someone who just stands up straight and she knows who she is. That is also very very beautiful, very sexy. And you get a little bit. You get both. You get a physical as well as that person.
And Jake Miner, the artist that I'm working with on Sheena, is doing just an awesome job with the body language of not just Sheena, but all the characters. He just has a good, not only the facial expressions, but just how they stand. It just conveys a lot about the characters. And we've sat down and had coffee and talked about a character, and I just watch him kind of sketching, making the kind of the tweaks to the character design as we talk. It's just great stuff.
Actually, I'm curious about something.
Yeah.
When you're writing your script for the art teams, either of the books you're working on, are you doing a very high detail or is it more of a kind of like they know the characters, so you're going to trust them and give them the broad strokes and let them work it in, or is it the column A, column B?
Well, on these last two projects, my most recent stuff, they've been pretty detailed. Because I hadn't worked with Eldon before, I hadn't worked with Jake before, and actually for Sheena we're working on the first story arc is based on something that Stephen and David, his son, came up with. So we're kind of working off of that template. I get the feeling, because Jake and I we live in the same the Metro Detroit area, so we can actually just get together.
Nice.
I get the feeling that things will end up being a little looser as we go along, just as we kind of pick up on each other's rhythms. But with Eldon, I gave him a full script with detailed descriptions and things. But as with any really good artist, they'll give you what you ask for plus a little more.
Yeah.
It's like I give you everything you ask for, but I throw in the touches that kind of just give it extra life. I worked with, the first published book I did for DC was an issue of Batman Beyond, and I worked with Craig Russo, who now does Perhapanauts, and he's doing Captain America Korvac saga over at Marvel. He was one of those great people that just threw in little extra touches that just really made the story pop. And I've been really fortunate to work with those kind of people. Both Eldon Cowger and Jake Miner are those kind of artists. They give you that little extra to really give it some extra energy, and I almost said pizzazz, but I'll go with it. I'll go retro.
Pizzazz.
It has pizzazz.
Yeah. This again is through Moonstone, correct?
Sheena's coming out through Moonstone. I don't think we've got an exact release date yet. Okay. It's going to be either late summer or early fall.
Oh, okay, great.
We're currently working. There's a kind of a teaser in a project called Phases of the Moon, which has 6 different characters published by Moonstone in 3 books, where each book has 2 characters interacting. Sheena's actually going to be interacting with Captain Action.
Yes.
So that should be kind of interesting, because they're very different.
Yeah, that's 2 broad, different strokes.
Yeah.
So getting those 2 together, that'll be an interesting read.
Yeah. And then we're, like I say, I think late summer, early fall.
Okay.
We should be seeing Sheena on the shelves again. We got some great cover artists who I'm going to blank on their names right now, but I've seen several of the covers that we're going to be doing, and Jake is just, I just really think he's going to knock it out of the park on the interior art. Everything I've seen so far has just got me more and more excited.
That's wonderful to hear. I really am impressed and in awe a lot of times when I get to talk to creators, because you're taking these just concepts, throwing them down, and then you're creating the page, and in the end we have this physical thing in our hands that we're reading and enjoying, and it's not even just the physical creation of it, the fact that you want me to feel a certain emotion and I'm going to feel it. And I have a lot of respect just for what you guys do, so I'm really looking forward to this. And
Thanks very
I want to
much.
see this, because I've read a couple of the Moons. We're DC focused, but I've read some Moonstone stuff. I've read some outside, and Moonstone does some pretty good stuff. So I'm gonna keep my eye out for this, and we'll try to throw a shout out coming up there.
Right. Well, and part of the reason why I write is because I've read a lot of great stuff, comics, books, and I feel an affinity for writing, so that's how but I feel like I'm paying it forward. The heroes of my youth, the writers that I love, they gave me a lot, and so I try and pass that on. It's exciting when it works. Every once in a while, you just run into somebody who's like, oh, I read that book and it was just really, really connected with me. And if that happens, that's what makes it all worthwhile. I love doing it, and I love hearing people excited about the storytelling process and kind of the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into it. A lot of tears, a lot of crying.
Well, thank you very much.
My pleasure, and hopefully I won't go, oh, wait, as soon as the mic's off, oh, I forgot about another thing. But thanks a lot. I really appreciate talking to you, and I had fun.
There they are, all alone except for that old character.
Hey, Sean and Jim, this is Scott from South Carolina. Just had to make a quick comment about the latest new episode of Smallville. Still cannot believe there's only a few episodes left. It just seems like this show's gotten better and better. This year has just been incredible. Wanted to see what your thoughts were on the episode, and I would love to see them spin Smallville off into Smallville Earth 2. I would love to see a whole show just on that second Earth and what happened and how it came to be and what happens afterwards. And I mean, just a little cliffhanger there at the end with, Jonathan trying to reconnect with Martha. I mean, that whole storyline would be incredible. And they couldn't do it with the TV show, of course, which I know they probably won't, but doing a comic book series with it, if that would be something that you guys would like to read as much as I would. And anyway, just wanted to hear your thoughts about it, and still can't believe just a few episodes left, but the 2-hour season finale looks incredible. Talk to you soon. Love the show, and I'll take care.
We're going to actually talk a lot more about Smallville on an upcoming show. We're being joined again by friend of the show, Art Lyon, and colorist for DC, and actually colorist around comics, Art Lyons. We're going to be having a big discussion with him about Smallville. But just some quick comments. I liked his idea. We're not going to see it. But, would I so love to see a series revolving around Earth 2, Smallville. I was actually thinking that during the episode. I'm like, wow, there's so much more I want to know about this world. And you could do whole episodes devoted to flashbacks. Fringe does this really well with the two Fringe worlds. What it is, there's an alternate Fringe universe where they'll flip over there and show us, they'll do like whole episodes devoted to what's going on in that universe. And while it's not the same thing as what he's saying, you could easily do this with an Earth 2 Smallville, where you do a present-day Earth 2 Smallville, like continuing on like he's talking about, with Jonathan and Martha, where we get to see how all that goes, but then do a flashback episode every so often that tells more of the history and develops it out. Because there's so much of that I would love to see. I would so watch that show. And like you said, it'd be a great comic book series. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get that. I would love to see a line of Smallville comics. They had one in the past that tied into the show, where they were little mini stories that tied into the show. But I'm not talking about mini stories. I'm talking about a full-blown new season, more what Buffy has done.
Exactly.
But I'd love to see, and then, if that's successful, do a Earth 2 Smallville comic that continues on, that type of thing. I honestly, I think there's room for it. I think there'd be a demand for it. I think it'd be very different than what they've tried before with Smallville comics, and I think there's a market for that. I think it's a mistake to not try it. Because it's something, talk about your comic experiments. Do a year of it. Do a 12-issue run. If it's not successful, you don't do it again. But you got to do a big arc.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely the Buffy, comparison is, perfect. You take on the seasons that would take place after the end of Smallville, and you just continue on telling the story of Smallville. That's that TV universe, and, you can throw some Earth 2 stuff. You could do some Legion stories, because that Legion's a little bit different than the comic. There's so much they could do with that, and then by making it a comic book, I think there's even a little bit more leeway to handle some different stuff that you couldn't really do as well on the TV show.
Bring in a Bruce Wayne, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that you want to go too crazy with that, though. I think you want to use it as sparingly as they have in the show. I think that's one of the core things is they threw it at us when they could do, like, I'm excited for the Booster Gold episode next week. Yeah. And one of the reasons why is because it's not overdone. It's a special thing during the season. There's usually some big events that happen in that episode that is forwards some form of character development or forwards some part of the mystery, or it does something, for the show, or it winds up being just a real special contained piece. The JSA episode is a great example of that. I thought it was brilliant. And we got to see that reappear again later. It was kind of promoting them as a new generation. It brought the team back together again and was acted as kind of an example for them when they were in a period of turmoil. So I'd like to see that kind of stuff happen in the comic as well. And, go back to my Buffy comparison. I think you need to put out like 12 issues of it, at least, and do it like a season. Ideally, I'd do longer than 12 issues. I would do a big arc.
But it's ongoing.
Yeah, but I mean, Buffy, like, the season ended. They had a certain number of issues, and that season 8 ended, and then they're going on to do another one. I would honestly do as many issues as you would do a normal season. So do your 20-something, issue comic, book it as a book-ended season. And if it was successful and it sold well, then you do another season. If it isn't, then you've delivered to your fans a cool piece that you can put on a trade shelf. And I think you're going to get in the trade market some people who read, people who were casual Smallville fans who maybe don't read comics, who are going to say, hey, I like that show, and they might pick it up the trades off of the shelf. I think it's a good, opportunity to market to an audience who's losing their show. Because you're not going to go to films with it unless there's plans to do some of that, but it doesn't look like it. With there being a whole new Superman cast, I don't see them doing made-for-TV Smallville movies after this.
I think this is it. I think we're done with it, and that's, for me, is a bad thing because I enjoy it so much, and this is a great way, one, to bring people who aren't currently reading, give them a chance, maybe introduce them to the comic book universe, the comic book medium. They could see how cool a story can be told in the comic books. Maybe they'll say, hey, let me check out the regular, this other the quote unquote real Superman, or the Superman in the DCU, however you want to refer to him. Maybe it could pull people that way, or it could just keep your audience that was happy with Smallville continually happy. It's something that we both think would be a really cool idea, and I'm pretty sure there's probably people out there listening to us right now saying, yeah, that's a neat idea, but who knows if the powers that be actually see it that way.
Yeah, I'd see that as being profitable. I mean, and that's, honestly, let's be honest, there's a business end of comics. There's a big business end of comics. Yeah. It's got to make money. And I can't imagine a Smallville comic, if you do it right and you bill it that way, and honestly, I think it's something that should have been in the tank before this. Like when Smallville ended, there should be something on the end of that episode saying, if you enjoyed this, coming this fall, the brand new Smallville comic with season 11. I mean, yeah. And promote it that way. Wow, what a shot in the arm that would be for the comics. I don't know. I think that would be, and you got to book it the way that you do the Buffy comic, in the sense that Joss Whedon did the overarching work on it, but then different writers read different arcs, wrote different arcs during the season, with Whedon popping in. So you have a main overarching writer, but then different writers who will pop in for different arcs, like you would television. Yeah.
And I think this was actually, again, would be a great way to pull in some of the comic book writers who are out there. Maybe they couldn't do the television, the script, or there wasn't enough room or availability for them. Well, now this is their medium. This is where they shine in. Let's see what they can do with it. So you can even pull, again, another way to pull in comic book, the regular creative writing teams into the the Smallville universe.
Brian Q. Miller, who's writing for Smallville, is already writing Batgirl brilliantly. This is the guy, he's getting the whole comics thing. It's like, let's do it.
G'day, fellas. Just Sam from Canberra, Australia here. Just wanted to talk about 2 books that I picked up this week. One not so good and one good. I'll talk about the not so good one because I know that if anybody's going to give me a positive reinforcement of how this book is really supposed to be, it'd be you guys. But I did not really enjoy Red Robin number 22 this week. And I think it was mainly an editing issue. You open up the book and there's part 2 of a storyline that they give us no indication of where part 1 started at all. All you need is a little editor's note, a little editor's caption, asterisk that says, before you read this book, please read book number X. This happens a lot in Bat books, and this is probably the reason why I don't stay on Bat books that often. But I'm not above buying another book, but really they need to tell us what part 1 is, where part 1 is. As a result, I only got to about page 6 before I just went, I had no idea what's going on. And that's a shame. But on to the next book. The book that I thought was fantastic this week was Rebels, issue 22. What a really great book. I mean, I'm going to be really sad to see this book go. I mean, I've been following pretty much comic books with Adam Strange in them since that great that great Pascal Ferry Adam Strange book, and it really showed that you could have action, excitement, great story development, still have character development after 27 issues, especially when it's supposed to be winding down. And I can't wait for the next issue, and I really, really, really hope that they keep these characters around somewhere. I know that Lobo should be around somewhere because he's got a red ring that isn't on his finger, but they really do need to keep these characters alive somewhere. Where that is, I just hope it's shown soon. All right, fellas, keep up the good work. See ya.
I love, love, love Rebels. And the whole fight with Lobo that's going on in that book right now, I think is just great. I love the way that Starfire and her sister are being spotlighted in this, going through their rich history. Blackfire's in there, but yet seeing her acting as the queen of her people and seeing a certain sense of loyalty to Vril Dox, who she's developed this relationship with. And again, one of the things that I really love about Rebels is the political intrigue between all these. Like, that certain people are traditionally villains, but yet when you see them in their political role, it feels very natural to a lot of the politics that are going on in our world right now. And I love that about it. It's very smart. It's very intelligent, high action, great characterizations. And it's sad because I think it's because they're oddball characters that maybe people haven't given this book a chance. But it is one of them. It's my highest possible recommendation to read Rebels if you haven't been. Don't let the fact that this book's being canceled deter you from picking this up in trade and reading it, because you're missing out on a great opportunity for a cool book. To see Lobo sitting down at the bar at the end with the enemy that he was just, the two of them were in this bitter fight where Lobo's saying, nobody's hit me, somebody hasn't hit me like that since Superman and all that. It's Smite, right?
Yeah, Smite.
Yeah, so he's fighting with Smite, and Smite's girl basically has been killed. That girl.
Lobo killed her, so he's like, that's it. It's on.
Right, exactly. Well, but then, and Lobo, just on general principle, because of the pheromones in there, is fighting them because she was put in that position. He's like, in his mind, convinced himself that was his girlfriend, and he's getting vengeance for her, even though he killed her because she was coming after him. I loved that bit. This series is ending on a crescendo. It's ending like on this really cool moment that I really love. What a great build, and it's something where I'm like, it's my space opera book. I love this about it. Rye and the Future Force was something that Tony Bedard and Magnus, and the two books kind of crossed over quite a bit, but I mean there was elements of them that echoed each other. It was this great future universe for Valiant that was going on in the day, and he's doing it shows just how his growth as a writer since then, because that was tremendous, but his growth as a writer now when he's doing this Rebels book is just wonderful. I love that. He was taught. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And they also at Chicago said that we're going to see where Starfire pops up. Mm-hmm. She's not when it's over. She's not just disappearing. They have a place in mind for her. So they wouldn't say where she's going to be or what's going to happen to her, but they did say
they said we'd be surprised.
Yeah, we'd be surprised. So I'm kind of curious to see where the surprise factor is.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see that character pop up somewhere else. It's sad, though, because regardless of where Starfire pops up, all those characters that have been involved, Captain Comet and Adam Strange, I was enjoying from those minis that Jim Starlin was doing. And then when they were brought into this book, it was great to see those characters brought on board and continued on. And I loved how seamlessly Tony Bedard fit them into this book. And again, I'm going to tell people, if you want to, on a budget, try out this book, the Starro, the Conqueror, Rebels Annual. Pick that up. It will make you a believer. That to me was the one I just can't recommend highly enough. It sells you on the book, and it's a tremendous title. And pick it up and read it, and do yourself a favor. The Batman, the story that he's talking about that's taking place in Robin, it's a 3-parter this month. It starts off in Batman 708, but realistically it starts off even earlier than that in the Azrael series. And I actually, it's the funny part, I'm really enjoying the story. I didn't notice there were no editorial notes, just because the way it's been released chronologically. So you don't, for those of us that have been reading those books, I didn't need the editor notes because I was reading Azrael, then the Batman book came out, and then the Red Robin book came out. But he's right. I had to look. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no editor notes, which in his case is a problem, because if you're not reading the other books and you're reading Red Robin, you're now lost. How do I know where to begin? I want to read your story, but and you want to know that at the comic shop. You know what? Forgetting the editor notes on the inside, this needed a banner on the top.
Yeah.
Part 1, part 2 of 3, and then, a banner on the top of the issue. Then you're in the comic shop, you grab 1, 2, bam, out of there. Because you really could have read Batman 708 and this, and continued on, because the Azrael continues into this, but this is a complete story. If you start at Batman, I really don't think you need to have read Azrael in order to grab that. Would you agree with that?
Oh, completely. If you picked up the 708, the Batman, you can go 1, 2, and you'd be okay.
Mm-hmm. To answer your question about Red Robin and just this whole story arc in general, it's been a great arc. I've really enjoyed it. And we actually talked about Batman 708 on the show. So if you look in our show notes, you can actually see our discussion about 708. And maybe that'll get you back into the issue, and you'll finish Red Robin 22. Because I loved the issue of Red Robin myself. And we're actually going to talk about it later in the month. We have one of our contest winners is coming on, and that was one of the books that he picked. It was from your Sensei Super Snuggie contest. It's Mark Vickers. So at the end of the month, he's coming on. We're going to be discussing Red Robin 22, the most recent issue of Superboy, and Teen Titans 94 when it's released. So we're going to have him on after that, and we're going to discuss those 3 books with him. So it's why we're deliberately not discussing it now. But check out our discussion about Batman 708. I get his frustration though, because I don't share it because I was picking up the books and I read them as they came out. But if I was in the comic shop and I came home and I'm like, I was just at the store, I've got part 2. Or if if let's say you buy mail order. Well, I mail ordered, my books are here and I've got this issue. I don't have the whole story. That would be annoying.
Yeah.
So, and it is something that I can understand his frustration there, not knowing that he was picking up part 2. Because you might want to pick up part 1 and decide, do I want to repick 2 or 3 up? And how do I know which one is part 1 if there is no indicator? So I get that part.
Yeah,
it's rare that happens.
Yeah, and I remember when I read part 1, it put note, which issue of Red Robin was going to be part 2. And I remember seeing that because I was like, oh dang, I gotta wait for it.
But that's at the end of that issue.
Right.
So if you pick that up, you're okay. But like he's saying, I picked up Red Robin 22. It doesn't tell me where to... it should say right at the beginning, before you read this issue, read Batman 708. So I get that point.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Because otherwise, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. If you've read Batman 708, Red Robin's a great issue. So to answer your question, Sam, pick up Batman 708. And honestly, if you do, Sam, call us back and let us know. How you did it improve the storyline for you or not? And if you honestly don't pick it up, don't bother calling back. You don't have to go pick it up for that reason. But if you're so inclined and you want to do it, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're like, geez, okay, now that I've read this, I really enjoyed it. But wow, it would have been so much less frustrating if they had done this for me. I get that, and I'm frustrated for him because I like the story. So I'm sitting here saying to myself, well, geez, I hate seeing that this dude who picked up this book, if there was just a little note in the front that told him where to pick it up, he probably would have really dug this story. Because I know you and I are both incredibly sad that that book's, Azrael in particular is being canceled, but the whole ending of that thing and what Dick Grayson's going through. Yeah, wait, you don't have it. He has no idea what Dick Grayson's going through. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Oof. Yeah, you need Batman 708. And I think you might change your tune. We have some more emails and voicemails that we recorded for our next episode. We just ran out of time on this show. But I want to remind everyone that our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype.
Holy caffeine!
want to remind everyone, our sponsors for this episode are DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, we have Zatanna number 14, $2.99 regularly, 40% off, only $179. Over at InStockTrades.com, the Superman cover-to-cover hardcover, $39.99 regularly, 38% off, only $24.79. Don't forget the Summit City Comic-Con, June 28, 2011, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Fort Wayne, Indiana. That's SummitCityComicCon.com. Coming up very soon is the Comic Geek Speak Super Show. That's 2011's show at April 30th to May 1st at the Greater Reading Expo Center. And that's Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday, 10 to 5 p.m. So definitely be sure to check out the CGS Super Show. Jim, our next episode, we're going to be doing more comic chat. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that we didn't get to on this episode. One in particular I'd like to talk about, Jamal Eigel is doing the artwork on Zatanna. And we haven't talked about Zatanna in ages, so for sure I want to talk about Zatanna next week. Because I think it's a very cool book, and his artwork kicked it up a notch for me. Something I was already enjoying, but kicked it up a notch for me. And we have a whole bunch of other stuff that I definitely want to get to as well. So, because there's a ton of books that are going to be released this week, I want to talk more of this Green Lantern event that's going on. So, we'll see. We'll talk about next week. We'll pick our favorites and chat about them. We will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me. Are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see your plan. What you do to me, Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see.